Chapter 554. This castle was the headquarters of the sacred Heavenly Church in Cheesy County. After learning its exact location from Mo Fan, Xiao Chun rushed over in half a day. "What are you planning to do?" Ao Jiao asked from within the lunar shadow saber. Xiao Chun, who was hidden in the clouds, raised his head and looked at the setting sun. He said softly, "Let's wait for the sky to turn dark." When Xiao Chun scanned the castle with his spiritual sense, the so-called defense of this castle was like a joke to him. He could see everything clearly. There were no secrets at all. There were 5 martial kings in the castle. However, the strongest was only a superior grade martial king. The other 4 were only inferior grade martial kings. They could not pique Xiao Chen's interest at all. He could easily destroy them with the flip of his hand. This was also why Xiao Chun did not think highly of the sacred Heavenly Church from the start. No matter how good their plans were, before absolute strength, they were all just a joke. However, Ao Jiao was not as relaxed as Xiao Chun. She said, "Have you ever thought that the small Cheesy County has 5 martial kings? If that is the case, how many bases does the sacred Heavenly Church have? An organization with so many martial kings is definitely not as simple as you think." Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Naturally, I have thought about it. That is why I have to wait for the sky to turn dark. When everyone here dies, there will only be true pain. Only then will this group of people realize that the person they offended is not someone they can afford to offend. That is why they will restrain themselves." Ao Jiao smiled and said, "You are not stupid. There is no need for me to worry. In that case, let's just do it." The sun set in the west, and dusk arrived. The night was as dark as ink. Layers of clouds dyed the sky, and the entire world sank into darkness. Xiao Chun, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and looked at the brightly lit castle. His lips curled up into a faint smile as he dived down. In the courtyard of the Zhang clan in Mo City, the Great Hall was crowded. All the elites of the Zhang clan, martial grandmaster and above, were gathered here. A few martial saint guest elders had arrived as well. No one was absent. The Zhang clan's clan head, Zhang Yin, sat in the middle of the Great Hall. Relying on the rapid development of the past 2 years, the Zhang family, which controlled most of the properties in the city, had roped in many experts. There were more than 10 martial saints and more than 100 martial grandmasters. Zhang Yin was an inferior grade martial king. He was considered a peak expert in Mo City. With such a strong strength, no one in Mo City could block him. Even the once glorious Xiao clan could not. As for the previous Tang clan, they had already been reduced to a third-rate clan, unable to even show their face. At this moment, the atmosphere in the hall was somewhat depressing. No one spoke. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement, caution, seriousness, and eagerness. "Patriarch, do you really plan to make a move against the Xiao family tomorrow? Haven't we already agreed to the city lord's mansion's request?" Finally, an elder who was older couldn't help but ask. Zhang Yin said sullenly, "Originally, I was prepared to wait for a while longer. However, after what happened in the restaurant during the day, I'm afraid that the situation might change. I cannot wait any longer. However, I heard that the Xiao clan's second young master is now a disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Could it be?" A young cultivator with small eyes asked worriedly. The moment these words came out, some of the cultivators who had experienced what happened 4 years ago revealed expressions of lingering fear. Zhang Yin's heart tightened as well. 4 years ago, he did not lead a team to kill his way into the Xiao clan. He was fortunate enough to survive, resulting in the Zhang clan's glory today. However, the Tang clan's clan head and the Strong Long clan's clan head had died at the same time. Their clans had also declined. However, Zhang Yin quickly calmed down. He smiled and said, "There is no need to be afraid. We now have the sacred Heavenly Church protecting us. Furthermore, Xiao Xiong's son has grown up. Isn't my eldest son as well? He is now a core disciple of the Misty Sword sect. Furthermore, that brat was chased out of the clan by Xiao Xiong long ago. What are you all worried about? Now is the best opportunity. While the Xiao clan thinks that we will abide by the city lord's agreement, we will deal them a fatal blow, preventing them from rising again." As long as the Shao clan is not destroyed, I will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Decide. Those who agree to attack tomorrow, raise your hand. Most of the cultivators present did not hesitate to raise their hands. Destroying the Shao clan would be equivalent to obtaining vast resources. To them, there will be many benefits. Naturally, all of them were eager to give it a try. When the few cautious cultivators saw this situation, they could only raise their hands helplessly. Zhang Yin said in satisfaction, "Very good. We will set off tomorrow and wash the Shao clan in blood. From now on, for the sake of secrecy, no one is allowed to leave this great hall." Pu Ci. At this moment, Shao Chun was massacring the sacred heavenly church, which the Zhang clan's clan head regarded as a threat. The sacred heavenly church that the Zhang clan's clan head thought of as the sacred heavenly church died, like vegetables in Shao Chen's hands. He did not even bother to draw the lunar shadow saber at his waist. When the gap in strength reached an insurmountable chasm, the advantage of numbers would only be a so-called joke. From the moment Shao Chun landed, the fate of this group of people in the castle was sealed. There was no way for them to survive. Miserable cries resounded. Shao Chun moved through the castle as though there was no one there. No one could stop him. They could not even make him pause for a moment. In the palace at the highest point of the castle, the 5 martial kings with the highest authority had sullen expressions as they looked at the murderous Shao Chun. There was a flight of steps under the 5. Shao Chun casually punched twice, and a surging fist wind swept out. He blasted the last 2 black-clothed cultivators, blocking his way in half. Finally, he arrived at the bottom of the flight of steps. His body slowly floated up as he looked at the 5 people in front. The person in the middle had the highest cultivation, a superior grade martial king. With such cultivation, he could be considered the strongest in Cheesy County. However, in Shao Chen's eyes, he was still not strong enough. The black robes that person wore were clearly thicker than those of the people around him. The ancient patterns on his robes were also more complicated, making him look solemn and dignified. Friend, no matter what the reason is, it is still not too late for you to leave. Let me tell you this clearly. The sacred heavenly church is not something that a peak superior grade martial king can bully. The first martial king from the left said coldly as he looked at Shao Chun. Although he felt fear in his heart, his tone was not overly flustered. Shao Chun said coldly, "Ignorant fool, did I say that I am a superior grade martial king?" Kassier. Shao Chun drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed. A dazzling purple light flashed. An extremely fast saber chi flashed. The person who spoke was chopped in half by the saber chi. His body exploded and turned into a pool of blood. We misjudged. This person is a half-step martial monarch. Split up and report to headquarters to give up on Cheesy County. The person in the middle had a surprised expression as he quickly retreated. The remaining 3 split up as well, heading in different directions. Originally, the 5 of them thought that Shao Chun was only a peak superior grade martial king. With the 5 of them working together, they should have been able to kill him. However, they did not expect that after Shao Chun drew his saber and revealed his strength, he could instantly kill them. The difference was so great that they could not make up for it with numbers or techniques. Roaming Dragons, 9 transformations. Shao Chen's figure trembled slightly, and he split into 4 clones. Then, he chased after the fleeing black-clothed men. A cool breeze blew, and Shao Chun hid all his killing intent. Before the 4 pursuers could react, an overwhelming killing intent erupted. Aside from the leader of the group, who managed to dodge the attack at the crucial moment, the other 4 did not have time to react before they were killed. The 5 clones merged together, and the purple light on Shao Chen's saber became extremely resplendent. Under the huge pressure, the black-clothed man closed his eyes in despair. Roar! Just at this moment, a resonant bird cry resounded in the distance. A golden sword light flew over from afar and blocked Shao Chen's saber. Bang! The saber and sword clashed, producing a huge energy shockwave. A strong wind blew, sending countless fallen leaves flying. A huge force spread out from the saber. Xiao Chun could not help but take 10 steps back before he could stabilize himself. Xiao Chun was astonished. The other party was actually stronger than him. Although Xiao Chun did not do much, this person who suddenly appeared was already an expert. The person who arrived was also wearing black robes. However, the patterns on the robes were made of gold. This added an ancient and dignified aura to the robes, adding a sense of grandeur to it. The black-robed man with the gold lining wore a mask that covered half his face. He looked very mysterious. "Young master, this subordinate is useless. I made an error in judgment. That person is a half-step martial monarch," the superior-grade martial king said in horror as he knelt on the ground. The masked man smiled faintly and said, "You can leave first. The Cheesy County's foundation is now useless. Don't come back again." That person felt like he was relieved of a heavy burden and quickly ran into the distance. Suddenly, the silent Xiao Chun said, "I know you, even though you purposely changed your voice. Who are you?" The person under the mask did not deny it. He smiled gently and said, "Honestly speaking, I did not expect that, given your character, you would be in closed-door cultivation instead of preparing for the Five-Nation Youth Competition. I did not expect that you would have the time to come to Most City." Xiao Chun said coldly, "Hiding your head but showing your tail. Let's see who you are." Boom, boom. Suddenly, a strong wind blew in the night sky. As Xiao Chun swung his saber, the clouds in the surroundings quickly gathered above Xiao Chen's head. This was the starting stance of the lightning tribulation saber technique. Wind and cloud move, wind blows, clouds move, clouds dance with the wind. Dang! The masked man smiled faintly. He did not show any fear when facing the strong Xiao Chun. The golden heavenly rock wings on his back spread out, and a dazzling light turned into a sharp sword chi. When the saber and sword clashed, the two immediately moved back. The two forces were evenly matched, and they each moved back 100 meters. The center of the churning clouds also moved back 100 meters, remaining above Xiao Chen's head. Lightning Tribulation Saber Technique's second move, gathering wind and clouds. As the saber danced, the wind and clouds suddenly merged together. The clouds in the surroundings immediately formed a huge whirlpool above Xiao Chen's head. When the masked man saw this mysterious phenomenon, his expression remained calm. He had a carefree smile on his face. Lightning Tribulation Saber Technique, interesting. Let's see how far you have cultivated it. The golden heavenly rock image behind the masked man flashed and appeared under him. Then, it carried him into the air. His speed tripled. Chapter 555. The dazzling sword light instantly arrived at Xiao Chen's face. The heavenly rock below him flapped its wings and blew a strong wind. Xiao Chen's clothes and hair fluttered continuously. When facing this extremely fast sword strike, his saber instantly moved, bringing with it the momentum of wind and clouds to block it. Bang! Violent energy exploded out, and the 1,000 steps beneath their feet exploded, turning into rubble. In the air, the two enormous energies were locked in a stalemate with each other. Under the curtain of the night, they refracted a multicolored brilliance. Xiao Chun quickly spun around in the air, dissipating the force of his saber. His opponent's simple sword strike could only be described as fast. However, when it reached an extreme speed, the force it carried was equal to a peak's superior grade Earth-ranked martial technique, perhaps even stronger. Boom! Suddenly, a resounding crack of thunder came from thousands of meters in the sky. Clouds moved in all directions, gathering wind and clouds. The first 3 moves of the Lightning Tribulation Saber technique were finally completed. Clouds gather in all directions, wind and lightning chop. Xiao Chun shouted ferociously. Using the momentum, he executed the 4th move of the Lightning Tribulation Saber technique. The Lightning Tribulation Saber technique had a total of 9 moves. The first 3 moves gathered power, the middle 3 moved lightning, and the final 3 moved descended the tribulation. This was the essence of the Lightning Tribulation. After Xiao Chun executed it, the mysterious phenomenon became like a real lightning tribulation. It slowly arrived and exploded. With the support of saber intent, this wind and lightning chop brought out its greatest might in Xiao Chen's hands. Wind blew, clouds moved, and thunder roared. Starting with the momentum of wind and clouds, it erupted with the power of lightning. This was the wind and lightning chop. The saber hummed continuously as it burned with a purple lightning fire. Under the illumination of the lightning in the night sky, Xiao Chen's handsome face appeared very serious and dignified in his white robes. The black-clad man smiled faintly. His expression under the mask was still very calm. He commented softly, "Not bad. Wind in front, gathering power with clouds, and lightning as a spear. You have grasped all the essentials of this move. Unfortunately, your understanding of the state of wind is still lacking. That is not how the wind blows." The masked man's gaze was as sharp as a sword. With one glance, he could see through the true state of this attack. The golden light behind him became increasingly dazzling. The intense state of light made the dark night even more dazzling than day. "Xiao!" The masked man held the long sword in his hand and thrust it forward. The boundless golden light behind him gathered at one point in an instant. The night, which was as bright as day just a moment ago, instantly darkened. Under the night sky, only the tip of the sword shone with boundless brilliance. The golden heavenly rock spread its wings and let out a shrill cry. Immediately, a violent storm arose, and the golden light directly shot out from the tip of the sword. Along with this gale, it rushed toward Xiao Chen. As the light flickered, the powerful force caused the surrounding space to wrinkle. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. The golden celestial pang's final gale had actually suppressed his great gale. As the wind was suppressed, the clouds above immediately showed signs of dissipating. As the wind and clouds dissipated, the might of the lightning on the blade immediately decreased by 20%. Boom! When the golden light struck the blade, the state of light burst forth. The dark night was illuminated by the golden light once again. Xiao Chen's body shot back like an arrow. His internal organs trembled slightly, and his qi and blood surged. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. The masked man stood upright while holding his sword. Sword intent circled around the blade, causing the sword to hum. He smiled faintly and said, "Don't try to execute this saber technique in front of me. You just learned it. The lightning tribulation saber technique is not meant for you to play around with." Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. There were not many fluctuations in his heart. He said indifferently, "That might not necessarily be the case. As long as there is wind, the clouds will not scatter. As long as the wind and clouds do not scatter, the momentum will not be extinguished." Right after Xiao Chen spoke, the strong wind that the golden heavenly rock blew actually started circling around him under Xiao Chen's control. The clouds above gathered again, and Xiao Chen's aura rose rapidly. He directly executed the fifth move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, falling lightning chop. Xiao Chen did not use any fancy moves with this attack. He directly used the might of heavenly lightning to descend from the sky and hack at the masked man. Bang! The masked man was somewhat astonished. Clearly, he had not expected Xiao Chen to react so quickly. Xiao Chen actually thought of using his opponent's wind to gather momentum again. Dang! In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen quickly swung his sword. The saber and sword clashed, and sparks flew everywhere. A vast electric energy exploded. This attack forced the masked man back several hundred meters. Cracks appeared on the golden heavenly rock behind him, looking like it would explode at any moment. Interesting. The masked man smiled faintly and waved his hand. The golden heavenly rock behind him split apart and turned into 9 beams of light descending from the sky, encasing his body. Dang! Xiao Chen did not give the masked man any time to react. He leaped up and executed the lightning tribulation saber technique with a momentum of wind and lightning, charging over again. Dang! 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 After the masked man scattered the golden heavenly rock, he seemed to have become even stronger. Under the encirclement of the 9 beams of light, he remained rooted to the ground, not moving at all. The masked man's sword gave off a bright light as it danced about. The masked man's defense was impenetrable, blocking Xiao Qian's attacks over and over again. Bathed in the light, he looked holy and solemn. When the saber intent and sword intent clashed intensely, the shock waves swept out. The vast fortress on the mountain peak rustled and crumbled. Earthly lightning, tribulation. When the masked man's aura reached its peak and the thunderclouds above finally surged, Xiao Qian shouted and executed the final 3 moves of the lightning tribulation saber technique. All the lightning attributed spiritual energy in the soil of the entire heavenly jade mountain gathered on Xiao Qian's saber, resonating with the thunderclouds in the sky. This saber strike connected heaven and earth, turning the lightning of the earth into a boundless great tribulation that surged out. Bang! Aside from the area 1 meter around the masked man, the rest of the ground under his feet exploded, creating a deep, ring-shaped pit. Under the illumination of the lightning, countless pieces of soil were wrapped in electric arcs, floating in midair. Heavenly lightning tribulation. Xiao Qian's expression did not change as he executed the 8th move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. At this moment, all the lightning-attributed spiritual energy in the sky turned into 9 bolts of heavenly lightning that descended and gathered on the saber. The 9 bolts of purple lightning were like ferocious flood dragons, tearing the night sky apart like a piece of black cloth. The entire space shattered under this saber strike. The golden light around the masked man turned into solid golden sand dancing up and down. His feet did not move at all as he forcefully received this saber strike. Boom! The ring-shaped pit around the masked man quickly enlarged and deepened. Soon, the entire mountain peak was blasted apart by this saber strike. When the electric light shot out, the rocks that flew up were all reduced to dust. As the dust settled, a stone pillar more than a kilometer tall appeared under the masked man's feet. The surrounding mountains, trees, forests, and ancient castles all turned to dust. Enough. Seeing that Xiao Qian was going to execute the final move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the masked man finally moved. He casually swung his sword, and the light filling the air turned solid. Then, it turned into a heavenly sword and shot towards the surging thunderclouds above Xiao Qian's head. The world is filled with righteousness. To people, it is called righteousness. Above are the stars, below are the mountains and rivers. With a bright world, how can one fear fiendish demons? Suddenly, a resonant song resounded in the mountain forest. It was like 10,000 people singing in unison. The entire world seemed to tremble. Righteousness art. This is the orthodox sword technique of the Tianwu dynasty. How does this fellow know it? Xiao Qian thought in astonishment. The light of the heavenly sword became increasingly dazzling as the song resounded. In the end, it could no longer be seen with the naked eye. With a so, it scattered the boundless thunderclouds in the sky. When the thunderclouds scattered, the strongest move of the lightning tribulation saber technique, the divine lightning tribulation, was naturally destroyed. Xiao Qian's complexion paled slightly. He calmly calculated the situation. Although he still had the stronger four-season saber technique, he had not used it yet. But even if he used it, he guessed that he only had a 50% chance of winning against this mysterious black-clothed man. It was obvious that the other party still had a trump card that he hadn't used. The masked man smiled and said, "Do you still want to stop me? Go back and make your preparations. With your current strength, it will be hard for you to rank within the top 10 of the five-nation youth competition." Watching him disappear from sight, Xiao Qian asked Ao Jiao in his mind, "Those ancient patterns on his clothes, do you recognize them?" Ao Jiao thought for a while and said, "That is the attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant clan. Those patterns are actually the words of the royal clan. They are just redrawn using a kind of artistic method." As he expected, Xiao Qian closed his eyes. After thinking for a long time, he opened his eyes again and said, I know who he is. The attire of the Tianwu dynasty's remnant races, the strong state of light, the surging sword intent, and the perpetually indifferent temperament. Who else could it be but that person? However, Xiao Chun had not expected that after not meeting him for more than a year, this person's strength had grown so much. Ao Jiao said sullenly, "This person is very powerful. The final luck of the Tianwu dynasty rests on him. His future accomplishments are immeasurable. He is a great enemy of yours." Xiao Chun said calmly, "There is no need to care about him. Let's go." "Go where?" "After killing the big fish, it is time to make a move on you." Xiao Chun summoned out the scarlet throne and sat on it with his eyes closed. He recovered his exhausted essence and silently flew towards Mo City on a scarlet cloud in the night sky. Only a lonely stone pillar remained on the tallest and largest peak of the Hotian Jade Mountain where Xiao Chun was. Dust churned around it, lingering for a long time. For hours later, before the sky had even brightened, that scarlet cloud appeared a kilometer above Mo City. Xiao Chun opened his eyes, and all his fatigue was swept away. A bright light flickered in his eyes before he withdrew it and calmed down. He got up and walked to the edge of the scarlet cloud. Xiao Chun lowered his head and looked around. His gaze stopped at the imposing Zhang clan's courtyard. "Xiao!" The scarlet throne turned into a beam of scarlet light and returned to Xiao Chun's forehead. Then, Xiao Chun gently floated down. In the dark night, he stood silently on the walls of the Zhang clan's courtyard like a ghost. When he saw a group of patrolling cultivators, he flicked his finger and sent out 2 purple flames. With a flick of his finger, 2 purple flames shot out like arrows. A bloody hole appeared on the foreheads of a few cultivators. They did not even have time to say a word before they quietly fell to the ground. Xiao Chun extended out his spiritual sense and soon discovered the strangeness of the Great Hall. 100 elite martial grandmasters, 10 odd martial saints, and the Zhang clan's clan head were all gathered here. Some of them were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, some were chatting and smiling, and some were drinking tea. The atmosphere in the brightly lit Great Hall was very strange. Chapter 556. I wonder what kind of expression that group of elites will have when we appear at the Xiao residence tomorrow morning. They will probably be scared to death. Haha, the Xiao clan has managed Seven-Horn Mountain for hundreds of years. The wealth they have accumulated must be astonishing. That's right. After this operation, we will definitely be able to get a share of the benefits. Even if the Heavenly Saint cult takes the majority, the remaining bits will be enough for us to enjoy. The Xiao clan still has a few girls with tender skin. They're all good stuff. I've been eyeing them for a long time. There's no need to be impatient. When the sun rises, everything will be ours. Xiao Chun withdrew his spiritual sense and understood what was going on. His face showed a little fear. Luckily, the Heavenly Saint Church's situation was not very troublesome. If it had dragged on for another 4 to 6 hours, the Xiao family would have been in big trouble. 100 elite martial grandmasters, 10 martial saints, and an inferior grade martial king. With such a sudden attack, the Xiao clan might not even survive. Raising his head to look at the eastern sky, it was pitch black there. The morning star had not yet risen. Xiao Chun jumped off the wall and walked out of the city. Because of the Seven-Horn Mountain, the Xiao clan's main camp was not located within the city. Instead, it was located at the foot of the mountain outside the city. The city was quiet. Apart from some merchants who had woken up early, there was no other sound. With a light leap, Xiao Chun jumped over the city wall that was dozens of meters high. Without alerting any of the city guards, Xiao Chun left the city. Xiao Chun stopped at a bend in the road and jumped into an abandoned tea house. He took out a bow from his universe ring and waited quietly with his eyes closed. That bow was the Soul Slayer bow. As Xiao Chun's strength increased, the might of the bow would also increase. He rarely used it, but at this moment, he could put it to good use. This was the only way to the Xiao clan. If he wanted to go to the Xiao clan, he had to pass through this place. Time passed slowly. It was unknown when the morning star had appeared, but the eastern sky was faintly turning white. In the great hall of the Zhang clan in Mo City, Zhang Yin looked at the morning star in the east and said, "Let's go. We will wash the Xiao clan in blood and monopolize most city. Wash the Shao clan in blood and monopolize most city. Wash the Shao clan in blood and monopolize most city. The hundreds of elite cultivators in the hall opened their eyes and shouted excitedly. Under Zhang Yan's lead, the 100-odd men charged out of the city, brimming with killing chi. At this moment, the sky had already begun to brighten, and there were already a few pedestrians on the streets. Looking at the Zhang clan elites, who were brimming with killing intent, their faces warped in horror. "I'm afraid that most city is going to change," an old man said with a sigh. After exiting the city gate, the speed of this group of people increased by a lot, and their faces were brimming with eager expressions. Thinking of the vast resources of the Shao clan, Shao Chen's right hand, which was holding the weapon, trembled slightly. Glory, splendor, wealth, and rank were sufficient for them to enjoy for the rest of their lives. One of the Zhang clan's guest elders, who was beside Zhang Yin, asked in a relaxed manner, "Clan head, what do you think the chances of success are for this operation?" Zhang Yin chuckled and said, "Is there a need to ask? 2 years ago, the envoy personally made a move, and Shao Xiong was severely injured. The other experts that he roped in have all left. With just the strength of the Shao clan, there is only one word for them: death." "What did you say to the envoy?" "I remember that he specifically reminded us not to touch the Shao clan." Zhang Yin said calmly, "This group of people only cares about money. I will give him 80% of the gains this time. What else can he say? Brothers, put in more effort and run faster. Kill all the men of the Shao clan. Gold, silver, treasures, natural treasures, and all sorts of beauties will all be yours." Zhang Yin turned his head and shouted, raising the morale of the group once again. Beauties and wealth could always boost the morale of the group at a crucial moment. At this moment, the morale of the group was at an all-time high. The guest elder at the side took the opportunity to flatter Zhang Yin, saying, "With this morale, we should be able to deal with the Shao clan in 2 hours." Zhang Yin nodded and smiled. "Everything is possible." Wong. Right after Zhang Yin spoke, an arrow flew over. Before the guest elder's smile faded, a bloody hole appeared in his chest. That arrow did not lose any momentum. So, it pierced through the chests of another 10 people before stabbing deeply into the ground. The tail of the arrow trembled. Wong, 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 wong. The arrows in the distance tore through the air, flying over continuously. They were so fast that one could not even see their shadows. Only miserable cries rang out, and 10 people immediately died. The speed of the arrows was simply too fast. In just a few seconds, 30-odd people had already died. All of them had died with one arrow piercing through their chests, their hearts shattering. Enemy attack. Get down. All of you get down. Zhang Yan's expression changed drastically as he shouted in panic. The remaining 70-odd elite cultivators all paled in fright. They had all been alive a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, they had all died. This situation was too terrifying. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. 3 cultivators who reacted slower did not have time to get down. The huge force of the arrows sent them flying into the air. Protective essence and the heart-protecting mirror did not help at all. What in the world is going on? Horror spread through the crowd. All the cultivators prostrated themselves on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. They could not figure out what had happened. Earlier, they were all thinking about how to wash the Shao clan in blood, how to enjoy the beauties and treasures. Zhang Yan's cultivation was the highest. He activated his vision and looked into the distance. He saw an intersection 2 kilometers away. A white-robed youth stood in an abandoned tea house. He held a bow in his hand and drew the bowstring. He looked at the group expressionlessly. "Damn it! How dare you kill the people of my Zhang clan? You must be tired of living." Zhang Yan's eyes looked like they were going to spew fire. He said to the few martial saint experts beside him, "That person is in the tea house 2 kilometers away. The few of you, sneak over." The few martial saints who were called out were extremely unwilling. However, when they saw Zhang Yan's sullen face, they could only carefully bow and walk forward. Bang, bang, bang. The moment these martial saints raised their heads, an arrow pierced through their foreheads before they could even cry out miserably, "Run!" Such a horrifying scene happened before everyone's eyes, scaring the group of people. They immediately got up and fled in a sorry state. At this moment, they had completely forgotten about washing the Shao clan in blood, monopolizing most city, glory, splendor, and riches. Since they were already dead, what was the point of having more? Zhang Yin panicked. He called out a few times, but no one listened to him. All of them only cared about fleeing, not caring about anything else. However, this group of people were not even martial kings. How could they outrun Shao Chun? In a flash, Shao Chun moved several hundred meters. Zhang Yin drew his bow and fired. Many lives were lost to the arrows. Then, he boldly charged at Shao Chun while roaring angrily. However, the arrow that flew at him completely frightened him out of his wits. That arrow was too fast. He had to use his cloning technique before he managed to shift his body at the critical moment. The arrow pierced through his chest. Zhang Yin managed to keep his life. He could not care about anything else and joined the fleeing group. In the end, no matter how fast they ran, they could not be faster than Shao Chun. Even without the blood flame shoes, Shao Chun could move at Mach 2. How could he outrun Zhang Yin? From the moment this group of people left the city, they were destined to meet only one end: death. Soon, only Zhang Yin remained of the 100-odd people. Corpses littered the streets of the city gates, a ghastly sight. Blood flowed continuously from Zhang Yin's chest. He panicked as he ran for his life into the city. Shao Chun had a calm expression as he knocked an arrow and drew back the bowstring. Then, he marked Zhang Yan's chest with his spiritual sense. When the bow was fully drawn, he released. Shao Chun used all his strength in this arrow. The injured Zhang Yin had no chance of dodging. As Zhang Yin fled in a fluster, he could not help but turn his head to look. This time, he no longer had a chance to turn around. The arrow pierced his chest with a shio sound. A huge force burst out, carrying his body up into the air. Finally, he hung on the city wall before stopping with a bang. The morning sun had just risen, and its rays shone in all directions. Before Zhang Yin died, he saw the sun rise one last time. However, he could not figure out what was going on. The words, "everything is possible," seemed to echo in his ears. The morning sun rose, covering the ground. The tightly shut doors and windows of the Shao clan's courtyard opened. The Shao clan disciples walked out of their rooms and headed for the drill grounds. The Shao clan's clan head, Shao Xiong, had arrived long ago. He wore tight robes and looked at the Shao clan disciples with a stern expression. Morning training begins. Be alert. No one is allowed to slack off. Following Shao Xiong's command, the disciples started to practice the Shao clan's fist technique in an orderly fashion. Fist winds blew, and cheers shook the ground. As the sun shone on the drill grounds, the Shao clan disciples looked spirited. What they didn't know was that just 2 hours ago, the Shao family had just escaped from a calamity. They also did not know that there was a person in the distance watching them. On a high ground 4 kilometers away from the Shao clan's courtyard, Shao Chun looked straight at the people in the drill grounds. He circulated his essence to his eyes. To Shao Chun, for kilometers was nothing. He could see every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, and every tree in the entire Shao clan's courtyard. Shao Chun just watched quietly, revealing a peaceful smile on his handsome face. His white clothes and hair fluttered in the cool breeze. Speaking of which, if you keep watching like this, are you really not going in? Ao Jiao's melodious voice came from the lunar shadow saber. Shao Chun shook his head and said, "There is no need. I will just watch." Ao Jiao continued to ask, "You have done so much for the Shao clan. Your father will definitely not blame you. Are you really not going to ask him why he chased you away?" Shao Chun did not say anything. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze and said slowly, "How can there be a father who chases his son away in this world? The pressure he is under is definitely greater than mine. My strength is not enough to relieve him of the pressure in his heart. It is best not to ask. If he did not have enough strength to ask, it would only increase the pressure on the other party. When he was strong enough, everything would come to light. Z. Suddenly, the remnant moisture in the air started churning. Xiao Chun stretched out his hands and controlled the moisture. Life bestowal spell. With a shout, the moisture turned into 14 lively birds under Xiao Chen's control, chirping nonstop. Chapter 557. Xiao Chun took out the remaining 14,000-year-old spirit herb from a universe ring and tied them to the little bird's feet. Then, he waved his hand and said, "Go." The little bird circled around in the air before flapping its wings and flying back to the Xiao residence. After doing all this, Xiao Chun withdrew his gaze from the Xiao residence with some reluctance. Then, he turned and left. The morning sun shone on Xiao Chen's back, leaving a long black shadow on the street. It moved up and down continuously, moving further and further away. No one in the huge Xiao residence knew that the youth who was chased out of the Xiao residence after kneeling 3 times 4 years ago had returned and taken a look at them from afar. He had come quietly and left quietly. He had killed a group of people and left behind his own thoughts. He did not drag things out and left in a carefree manner. Half a month later, Xiao Chun returned to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion and entered closed-door cultivation. There were only 3 months left until the 5-nation youth competition. Xiao Chun was making his final preparations. At the same time, all the genius cultivators in this starry sky were making their final efforts for the moment when everyone would fight for the peak. After the Tianwu continent's Thunder King, there had been no new Emperor Wu in the past 5,000 years. After 5,000 years of waiting, a flourishing age was about to descend. The 5 great nations, the ancient desolate land, the barbarian race of the north, and the boundless sea. There were countless geniuses under the starry sky. Who would stand out and stand at the peak? Who would be the true main character on the dazzling stage under the continent? The battle at the peak 3 months from now would be revealed. In a forbidden land of the divine dragon palace in the eastern boundless sea, there was a small spatial tear. If one passed through it, they would reach the true demonic world. There was a 4-sided golden barrier around the spatial tear. For old martial monarchs of the divine dragon palace guarded this place day and night. At this moment, the eastern sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian, rode on his royal dragon horse. He held the heavenly war halberd and stood calmly in front of the forbidden land. The current dragon king of the divine dragon palace stood beside Xianyuan Zhantian. The dragon king looked at Xianyuan Zhantian and said, "Zhantian, are you sure you want to enter this spatial tear? Do you know what it means to pass through this spatial rift?" Xianyuan Zhantian nodded and said, "I only have 3 months. The geniuses of the great Gene Nation are not simple. I need to enter the deep abyss demonic world for a true experiential training." The Dragon King said no more. "Since you have decided, I will not stop you. If you die in there, I will choose a new successor." The barrier slowly opened, and Xianyuan Zhantian rode on the royal dragon horse without hesitation. He laughed loudly and said, "Old fellow, you only know how to curse me. Don't worry, I will definitely take your position. No one can replace me, Xianyuan Zhantian, in ruling the 4 seas for you." As the Dragon King watched Xianyuan Zhantian disappear into the crack, he smiled silently and said, "This confidence is sufficient." Back mountains of Qingyun Peak. In the first month since Xiao Chun returned, he focused on perfecting the lightning tribulation saber technique. During his fight with the masked man, Xiao Chun finally learned of the lightning tribulation saber technique's weaknesses and weaknesses. Wind and clouds gather before thunder roars. Xiao Chun's state of wind was too weak. As a result, the masked man was able to see the weakness of the lightning tribulation saber technique's mysterious phenomenon with one glance. Now that Xiao Chun knew the weakness, he could think of a way to make up for it. This was not a difficult thing to do. In 1 month, he had already made up for most of the weaknesses of the lightning tribulation saber technique. If he ran into the masked man again, Xiao Chun was confident that the masked man would not be able to find the weakness immediately, causing the mysterious phenomenon to scatter and the might of the saber technique to decrease significantly. What gave Xiao Chun a headache was the 4th move of the 4-season saber technique. What state should he use for winter before he could find the true saber technique that belonged to him? However, Xiaochen was not in too much of a rush. He practiced the martial techniques that he was familiar with during the day and continued to cultivate the purple thunder divine incantation at night, strengthening his essence. There were some things that required comprehension. If one could not see through it, the more one thought about it, the more one could not extricate oneself from it. It would only add to one's frustrations. When one completely calmed down, there would be light at the end of the tunnel. Suddenly, one would understand. The problem that had been troubling one for a long time would be easily solved. Back then, when the founder of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion created the Lightning Tribulation Saber technique, it was due to a chance encounter. He saw a spirit beast undergoing its tribulation and gained some comprehension. Hence, Xiaochen was not in a rush. He only treated it as a whetstone for tempering his mental state. Even if he could never comprehend it, the growth of his mental state would be sufficient to make up for the loss of this saber technique. Who could say for sure whether it was a gain or a loss? The sun rose and set. The clouds gathered and dispersed. The remaining 3 months of the five-nation youth competition decreased by the days. On this particular day, Xiao Chan was cultivating in his room with his eyes closed. The moonlight shone through the window and landed quietly on Xiao Chen's bed. Kassier. Suddenly, the 2 superior grade spirit stones in his hand shattered. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and looked at the spirit stones drained of their spiritual energy. He shook his head helplessly. Now that Xiao Chen was a half-step martial monarch, he could absorb spiritual energy even faster. 2 superior grade spirit stones were not enough for 1 night of cultivation. As for the crystalline chi whirlpool in his dantian, it was like a bottomless pit. He was far from reaching a bottleneck. In order to reach martial monarch and refine quintessence, Xiao Chan needed to push his cultivation to the bottleneck and open his sea of consciousness. Xiao Chen muttered, "I opened my sea of consciousness long ago. However, my cultivation is still not up to par. Even if I had another year, I would not be able to reach the peak of half-step martial monarch." Xiao Chen casually glanced at the ground. The pale moonlight looked like frost as it struck the ground. It made one feel sad for some reason. The moonlight is like frost, the flowing water hurts. Beauty changes easily. Where does one find home? Suddenly, this line of a poem appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. He smiled faintly and said, "However, this kind of sad emotion is not suitable for me." Xiao Chen took out another 2 superior grade spirit stones and prepared to cultivate. Suddenly, he stopped. It was like a bolt of lightning flashed in his mind. "I have been thinking about winter. Aside from snow, what else could represent winter? Isn't this what I seek?" "That's right. That's right." Xiao Chun laughed loudly and said excitedly, "The ancients did not lie to me. Once I comprehend it, I will soar to the heavens. I will be suddenly enlightened, suddenly enlightened." Xiao Chen laughed loudly. Then he picked up the lunar shadow saber beside him and rushed out of the door. The final move of the 4-season saber technique used frost as a guide, deriving the state of grief. In the forest, Xiao Chun closed his eyes and entered deep thought. The comprehension he gained earlier replayed in his mind as he sank into deep thought. After a while, Xiao Chun opened his eyes. He grasped the hilt of the lunar shadow saber with his right hand and drew it forward. Xiao Chun slowly circulated the 4-season saber technique as he moved through the forest. The surrounding air dropped rapidly as the saber light danced. Layers of faint mist slowly descended from the trees, and frost abruptly covered the ground within a radius of 1,000 meters. The moonlight is like frost. The flowing water hurts. Xiao Chun shouted and casually swung his saber. The state of grief contained in the saber burst out along with the frost. Shwa, shwa, shwa. In that instant, all the trees in the forest silently split apart. Kassier, Kassier. Crisp sounds rang out continuously. Xiao Chun sheathed his saber, and all the trees within a kilometer fell. The vast forest disappeared, leaving only a layer of frost on the ground. This move did not have a great aura or boldness. It only turned the saber technique into frost and infused it with the state of grief. Silently, he killed the other party. By the time the other party woke up, it was already too late to change anything. It was just like how all the trees within a kilometer, brimming with life, lost all signs of life with one saber strike, leaving only a layer of white mist. Xiao Chun muttered to himself, "The fourth move of this four-season saber technique shall be called Frostmourne, then." Since then, Xiao Chun had comprehended the four-season saber technique: spring, thunder chop, burning to desolation, fated person in autumn waters, Frostmourne, and four seasons. He had succeeded in creating a saber technique that was infinitely close to a heaven-ranked saber technique. He had created this saber technique all by himself. It was unique. As for the final move, cycle of four seasons, he did not need to comprehend anything else. This was because this cycle of four seasons only had one meaning: endlessly growing and multiplying. Desolation of time, the world changing in a mulberry fields. Everything in the world, be it a tall mountain or a vast ocean, would wither and wither one day. The sky would wither and the earth would wither and grow old. Even a vast ocean would turn into mulberry fields. Only plants and life would grow and die, never stopping. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter would never change under the cycle of the four seasons. Time continued to flow by at an unhurried pace. The start of the five-nation youth competition approached day by day. 2 months, 1 month, half a month, soon. Only 10 days remained before the five-nation youth competition. In the Haotian sect of the Great Jin Nation, the leader of the 5 great nations in the Tianwu continent, as one of the 10 great sects of the Great Jin Nation, the Haotian sect naturally had many talents. However, Yu Chenxi was the peak genius of the sect. Ever since she obtained the daybreak flower, Yu Chenxi had become the strongest genius in the sect. Ever since Yu Chenxi obtained the daybreak flower, his cultivation had soared like a whirlwind. His morning sun incantation had also advanced by leaps and bounds. Yu Chenxi had left many of his fellow sect members in the dust. They could only look up to him. On this particular day, Yu Chenxi's daybreak peak suddenly released thousands upon thousands of rainbow-colored lights. As the light shone, it looked boundlessly beautiful. The disciples passing by quickly stopped to take a look. They all had astonished expressions on their faces. Rainbow-colored lights. This is a mysterious phenomenon that only occurs when one reaches the 13th layer of the morning sun incantation. The great world is coming out of closed-door cultivation. A disciple wearing the uniform of the Haotian sect said excitedly, "First senior sister has been in closed-door cultivation for 3 months. When she comes out, her strength will definitely soar. Quick, look, the elders are here." The appearance of the rainbow-colored lights actually startled the elders. 3 figures flew over from the main peak of the Haotian sect. They were 3 old men with extremely strong auras. As they stood together, the wind behind them instantly stopped blowing. The air froze, and the many disciples below found it hard to breathe. One of the old men revealed a gratified smile. He said softly, "No one has been able to practice this morning sun incantation to the 13th layer for 1,000 years already. Chenxi has truly entered the ranks of the peak experts of the Great Jin Nation." The gray-robed old man at the side also had a wide smile on his face. He muttered, "First elder, with the Dawn Kingdom's current strength, it should be able to get into the top 10 of the five-nation youth competition." Chapter 558. The first elder in the middle said sullenly, "It is hard to say. The Drifting Snow Sword sect, the Sun Moon Gate, and the Supreme Unity Palace all have powerful geniuses, not to mention the 10,000 years of accumulations of the 8 noble clans. We can only be sure when she comes out." Boom! Suddenly, a resplendent clump of light burst out from the bright, multicolored light. That light was like the morning sun rising slowly. The beautiful Yu Chenxi was in the middle of the light. Under the illumination of the multicolored light, she looked like a fairy, elegant and refined. "She is out." All the multicolored light suddenly gathered together and formed a rainbow bridge. Yu Chenxi walked on the rainbow bridge towards the 3 elders. Chenxi greets first martial uncle, second martial uncle, and third martial uncle. Yu Chensi smiled and bowed slightly. The first elder carefully sized up Yu Chensi. His face was filled with shock. He muttered, "A peak consummation half-step martial monarch." Yu Chensi revealed a faint smile and said, "I have also comprehended the state of light and state of cloud to their limits. I have also reached great perfection in the morning sun fist." The first elder laughed loudly and said, "Good. Now you're finally qualified to fight for the last 2 spots in the top 10. The 8 noble clans had 10,000 years of inheritance. Every noble clan had produced a martial emperor. Their descendants all had the bloodline of martial emperors. All of them had astonishing talent and were outstanding people. In every 5-nation youth competition, the top 8 would be filled with different people. The only thing that did not change was that the top 8 were all disciples of the 8 noble clans. This was a fixed pattern that could not be changed. Furthermore, there had never been any surprises. Even for someone as strong as Yu Chensi, the first elder could only say that she could fight for the 9th and 10th spots. It was impossible for her to get into the top 8. However, Yu Chensi's expression did not change much. She only raised her head and looked in the direction of the great Qin nation in the distance. Her eyes revealed some anticipation. Yu Chensi muttered to herself, "I wonder how strong that fellow is." Now that 2 years had passed, he had relied on the daybreak flower to improve his strength by leaps and bounds. Could he, who was alone and without a sect, still catch up? In the Evil Moon Pavilion, one of the top 10 super sects in Jin Nation, there was a moon-shaped lake. The top genius of the Evil Moon Pavilion, Baijan, stood expressionlessly in the middle of the lake. At first glance, the lake was calm and tranquil. But if one looked carefully under the mirror-like surface of the lake, there were countless specks of red light that were constantly jumping. Their numbers were almost the same as the lake, half to half. If one's cultivation reached martial monarch and could extend out their mental energy, they would be shocked to discover that the specks of red light were actually hot sparks. Water and fire countered each other. This was the eternal law of nature. But at this moment, there were so many strange sparks burning in the vast lake. Wave of raging ice flames. Suddenly, Baijan, who had a calm expression, shouted. The lake water that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly erupted. The surface of the lake surged. Countless pillars of water turned into ice, and the sparks burned into raging flames that soared into the sky. Finally, they merged into ice and fire, forming a huge shockwave that headed for a mountain range in the distance. Bang! A huge amount of energy erupted. The small mountain peak, that was over 1 kilometer tall, was blasted into powder by the impact of the shockwave. That was not all. Unexpectedly, a huge pit appeared in the ground below the mountain. It was 100 meters wide and bottomless. Baijan revealed a maniacal smile. He laughed loudly and said, "I finally achieved the perfect ice and fire compatibility. Xiaochun, you managed to escape with your life in the boundless sea. In the 5-nation youth competition, I will make you lose face in front of everyone. Tianwu Continent, Great Chu Nation, Heavenly Sword Gate." Ding Fengqiu stood on a mountain peak with his hands behind his back. 18 swords danced in the air in front of him, forming all sorts of formations. The long swords trembled in the air, giving off a buzzing sound. Everywhere they passed, a pitch-black tear appeared in the air, disappearing in a flash. These swords could even tear space temporarily. It was hard to imagine the might of these swords. Senior brother, you can control 18 swords with your defensive sword technique. Jin Wuji, who had rushed over from behind, exclaimed in shock when he saw this scene. Xiao, Ding Fengqiu casually withdrew the 18 swords into his spatial ring. He smiled gently and said, "Yes. However, I cannot maintain it for long." Jin Wuji said joyfully, "That is great. That Xiaochun is definitely not a match for you. With 18 swords flying out, no one under martial monarch can receive them." Ding Fengqiu appeared very calm. He smiled faintly and said, "That is hard to say. Let's not talk about this for now. Why are you looking for me?" Jin Wuji recovered his wits and said, "The sect master told me to look for you. He said that the 5-nation youth competition will start in 7 days. He wants you to go and choose a secret treasure. Let's go then. Similar situations occurred in every corner of the Tianwu continent. As the five-nation youth competition entered its countdown, all the genius cultivators in closed-door cultivation came out one after another. All the genius cultivators in closed-door cultivation came out one after another, filled with boundless confidence as they waited for that day to arrive. In the back mountains of Qinyan Peak, Xiao Chun sat before a waterfall. He looked somewhat leisurely as he watched the never-ending waterfall fall. 3 days ago, Xiao Chun had completely mastered the final move of the four-season saber technique, Cycle of Seasons. He named it Cycle of Seasons Endless Growth. He had already comprehended the lightning tribulation saber technique to great perfection and the four-season saber technique to the point of comprehending it. As for his other martial techniques, such as the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula, the Strength character formula, the exclusive saber technique of the Blue Dragon Martial Spirit, the Dragon Subduing Slash, and the exclusive movement technique of the Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art. Due to various reasons, Xiao Chun could not cultivate the peak martial techniques of the Tianwu continent for now. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chun decided not to cultivate bitterly. Instead, he came here every day to look at the waterfall and chat with Ao Jiao. He waited quietly for that day to arrive, tempering his mental state. The Battle Sage Origins changing character formula required Xiao Chen's cultivation to reach a deeper level before he could continue practicing it. Otherwise, he would only be able to cultivate it on the surface, and his opponent would be able to see through it easily. As for the Strength character formula, although it was hidden in the Lunar Shadow Saber, there was no mental cultivation method to it. Xiao Chen was confused and could not learn it. Xiao Chen had already used the Dragon Subduing Slash twice. The painful experience from back then was still fresh in his mind. If he wanted to live, how would he dare to use it again? Xiao Chen guessed that the requirement for this Dragon Subduing Slash was not a cultivation realm, but a physical body. Only when the physical body reached a certain level and could withstand the horrifying shockwaves would one be able to control it freely. After you advance to Martial Monarch, you should be able to cultivate the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula. Sang Mu did not rely on the changing character formula to become famous in his early years. Ao Jiao, who was in the Lunar Shadow Saber, said rather calmly, "However, there is another possibility. Perhaps you are not suitable for cultivating the Battle Sage Origins. Hence, you have not been able to materialize your opponent's martial technique." Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, "It's fine. Everyone has their own path. I am a bladesman, and the Thunder King is a swordsman. It will be difficult for me to walk his path again. A saber was a saber, and a sword was a sword. There was an insurmountable gap between a bladesman and a swordsman. A bladesman was tyrannical and mighty. Aside from that, there was no other special characteristic. A swordsman was different. The sword was a gentleman of weapons. No matter how tyrannical or mighty one was, there would always be a trace of elegance. Of course, there was no definite conclusion as to which of the two was stronger. It all depended on the individual's strength. Ao Jiao was somewhat surprised. She said, "I underestimated your trashy master. What you mean is that you do not want to be the second Thunder King. You only want to be your white robe bladesman, Xiao Chun?" Xiao Chen smiled faintly and did not deny it. He changed the topic and said, "I have always heard that the Thunder King defeated many noble clan geniuses in the five-nation youth competition. Speaking of which, what rank did he obtain in the five-nation youth competition?" The era of the Thunder King was the same as now. It was also a time when geniuses sprouted. There were many geniuses and countless heroes. Furthermore, the name of the Thunder King, Sang Mu, had spread throughout the Tianwu continent after the battle on the Wind Cloud platform. However, the Great Qin nation did not know which rank he obtained back then because it was too long ago. Ao Jiao was about to say something when she heard footsteps. She could only stop herself and say, "Someone is coming." "Haha, Xiao Chun, you are really free. You still have the time to look at the waterfall?" Lu Suifeng walked over with a radiant smile on his face. He did not stop smiling. Xiao Chen looked back, and a light flashed in his eyes. He performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Congratulations on breaking through to Martial King." Lu Suifeng chuckled and said, "I just broke through yesterday. This is all thanks to your spirit stones and spirit herbs. Otherwise, I would not have been able to break through the bottleneck of Martial King so quickly." Xiao Chun said calmly, "It is just a small matter. Why are you looking for me?" Lu Suifeng revealed a helpless expression. He said, "I really don't know what to say to you. There are still 7 more days before the registration period for the 5-Nation Youth Competition. We have to depart immediately. The First Elder is currently gathering all the qualified participants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The requirements for this year's 5-Nation Youth Competition were already announced. As Lu Suifeng expected, they had to be Martial Kings below the age of 24. Compared to the previous 5-Nation Youth Competition, this was an entire grade higher. However, there would probably be more people participating. Heaven Viewing Platform. In the main hall of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiao Chun saw the other participants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Aside from him and Murong Chong, there were 4 others. They were all people that Xiao Chun knew. Qinwan Peak's Mu Chun, Tianyue Peak Zhang Lai, Yin Kursin, and the newly advanced Martial King, Lu Suifeng. There were more than 5,000 people in the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Only 6 people qualified to sign up. This was a rather unsightly number. Xiao Chun nodded and smiled at the others, taking it as a form of greeting. Since the First Elder had not arrived yet, they started chatting casually. They were all old acquaintances. They had participated in a life and death adventure together in a different space. They did not have any grudges against each other. Soon, they started chatting happily. Only Murong Chong, who was proud and aloof, did not join in. Mu Chun looked at Xiao Chun and said to Yin Kursin and Zhang Lai ruefully, "Back then, in the different space, although the 3 of us were weaker than each other, it was not that big. In less than 2 years, Xiao Chun managed to fool us." Chapter 559. Xiao Chun said calmly, "Aside from a cultivator's talent and aptitude, if a cultivator wants to succeed, they need fortuitous encounters and luck. Perhaps in another 2 years, a fortuitous encounter will help all of you." Yin Kursin shook her head and said, "I feel that everything you said is secondary. How far a cultivator can go depends on the cultivator's character in the end." The group chatted about some other topics. Not long after, the First Elder, Jiangqi, brought the Second Elder and the Third Elder over. Jiangqi got right to the point. The 5-Nation Youth Competition will be held in the Great Jin Nation's Dragon Ceiling Mountain Range. It is too far from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. We have to depart early. If there are any matters, I can give you an hour to prepare. We will depart immediately after 1 hour. Xiao Chun and the others shook their heads to indicate that there was no need to prepare. Jiangqi nodded and said, "Let's depart now then." The group followed Jiangqi out. At some point in time, a crystalline jade ship had stopped in the empty space in front of the hall. Lu Suifeng was somewhat astonished. He said, "This is Martial Grand Aunt Shen's personal golden jade glazed ship. It is a high-ranked superior grade secret treasure. Is Martial Grand Aunt Shen going with us?" Jiangqi nodded with a complicated expression. He said yes. All the sects in the world have to go to the Dragon Ceiling Mountain Range. We cannot tarnish the reputation of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, some things are not as simple as you think. We have to show off our strength. On the bow of the ship, the noble Shin Manjun smiled faintly and said, "Jiangqi, there is no need to tell the juniors about these things. Come on up." On a mountain peak in the Misty Sword sect in the Great Qin Nation, Chu Chaoyan had a deep gaze as he looked at the churning clouds in front. It was unknown what he was thinking. The Misty Sword sect's sect master, who was behind him, said sullenly, "Chaoyan, although the Misty Sword sect has 9 people qualified to register this time, aside from you, none of them can clear the first stage." Chu Chaoyan turned around and smiled faintly. "Sect master, rest assured, be it for myself or for the Misty Sword sect's help, I will do my best in the 5-Nation Youth Competition." Upon hearing this, the Misty Sword sect's sect master felt slightly more at ease. Chu Chaoyun's origins were mysterious. Even a misty sword sect master could not completely figure out his strength. If Chu Chaoyan was willing to use his true strength, he would definitely be able to enter the top 20. The luck that the Misty Sword Sect obtained was sufficient to allow the Misty Sword Sect to stand firm in this great age. All right then, I won't say anything unnecessary. We'll depart tomorrow. You should prepare for today. In the southern boundless sea, the South Sea's 4 prodigies gathered before table. Their faces were filled with excitement, all of them looking eager to try. It's finally time to go. I want to meet the geniuses of Dajin for a long time. I want to see if the 8 big families and 10 major factions are as powerful as the legends say. Don't be too confident, third brother. Although the density of the spiritual chi in the endless ocean isn't lower than that of Dajin, our heritage is still inferior to that of Dajin. Don't take it lightly. Big brother is right. However, us 4 brothers are not bad either. Since we were able to make a name for ourselves in the endless ocean, we will definitely do well on the continent. The leader of the Southern Sea's 4 prodigies picked up his wine cup and said ferociously, "That's right. It is fine if we do not go out. However, when we go out, we must make a name for ourselves as the Southern Sea's 4 prodigies. Come, let's toast to us 4 brothers. Let's hope that we can all make it into the top 50. That's a must. Cheers! Cheers! Bang!" The 4 clinked their cups and drained them in one go. Then they smashed their wine cups and laughed loudly. Then they headed for the warship that had already stopped. In the eastern boundless sea, in the forbidden land of the divine dragon palace, for martial monarch elders looked anxiously at the spatial crack in the barrier. The hope of the divine dragon palace, the eastern sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian, had already been in the deep abyss demonic world for more than 2 months. Now, 3 days had passed since the appointed time. However, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian, had not come out yet. Given Xianyuan Zhantian's memory, he would definitely not forget the appointed time. Unless there was only one possibility. He died. The 4 martial monarch elders all had unsightly expressions. Xianyuan Zhantian was the divine dragon palace. No, the entire boundless sea. He was a rare genius cultivator in the past few thousand years. He would definitely become a martial sage in the future. The divine dragon palace had spent countless resources on him. If such a person died, the divine dragon palace would not be able to bear the consequences. Your Majesty, we have already waited for 3 days and 3 nights. Let's choose someone else. The divine dragon palace needs someone to lead the team. One of the elders could not help but say. The dragon king's sharp eyes appeared very calm. He said in a sonorous voice, "There is no need to say anything more. Zhantian is worth me waiting for another 7 days and 7 nights. In this glorious age, the rise of the divine dragon palace will belong to him." Dong, dong, dong. Right after the dragon king spoke, heavy footsteps came from the barrier. The footsteps were very heavy. Every step was very heavy, causing the ground to tremble. The expressions of the 4 elders changed greatly. They thought that a powerful demonic beast had come out of the spatial crack, so they quickly turned their heads to look. They saw Xianyuan Zhantian covered in wounds from the spatial crack. His purple robes were dyed red. He carried the royal dragon horse, which looked even more severely injured than him, on his shoulder. The 4 revealed expressions of extreme shock. The royal dragon horse weighed tens of thousands of kilograms. Could it be that Xianyuan Zhantian carried it all the way back with his injured body? Bang! Xianyuan Zhantian held the heavenly war halberd in his right hand and casually swung it forward. The barrier that could trap a rank 8 demonic beast immediately shattered. Sorry, something unexpected happened to Brother Ma. I was trapped for a long time. I hope I'm not late. Ancient, desolate land, under the vast heavenly extermination lake, a huge palace made of white jade floated quietly at the bottom of the lake. This palace was the mysterious headquarters of the Myriad Fiend Palace. Beside a garden in the palace, Bai seriously practiced the heart-nourishing universe sword technique. As the sword light danced around, the wind howled. It was like the world had turned upside down. A bright light flickered at his chest. As the light flickered, The might of the chain's sword technique more than doubled. That flickering light was the heart of a swordsman that countless swordsmen yearned for even in their dreams. After 2 years, Bai's pure and charming face lost some of its childishness and gained a youthful charm. Her curvaceous figure also became more graceful. Coupled with her indistinct demonic aura, it gave the young girl a different kind of beauty. One look at her would make one sink into her. Dong! 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 Footsteps rang out. Bai sheathed her sword and turned her head to look. She discovered Mu Xinya walking over. Mu Xinya immediately revealed a joyful smile on her pretty face. She quickly ran over and said, "Elder Sister Xinya, are we going to the Great Gene Nation?" As one of the 3 peak geniuses of the Myriad Fiend Palace, naturally, Mu Xinya had to represent the Myriad Fiend Palace in the 5-Nation Youth Competition. She rubbed Bai's head and said, "Yes, we are leaving soon." Bai continued to ask, "Elder Sister Xinya, Elder Brother Xiao Chun will definitely participate, right?" Mu Xinya revealed a smile on her quiet face. Xiao Chen's face appeared in her mind. She thought about how heroic he was in the ancient desolate tower. Mu Xinya nodded seriously and said, "He will definitely go." Bai smiled happily and said, "That's great. I can finally see Elder Brother Xiao Chun." Shun Manjuan's golden jade glaze ship flew at Mach 3 in the clouds, heading for the Great Gene Nation's dragon sealing mountain. Several warships could be seen in the sky. Like the golden jade glaze ship, they were all heading in the same direction. Aside from the warships, there were also many cultivators traveling alone, riding on flying spirit beasts. As far as the eye could see, there were quite a few martial artists separated by a certain distance. Naturally, these people were all heading for the Great Gene Nation's dragon sealing mountain. However, only a small portion of them were there to prepare the 100 participants. Most of them were there to watch the excitement. The 5-Nation Youth Competition was the start of the Age of Geniuses. It was a once-in-a-thousand-years event. It attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the continent. Everyone wanted to go and take a look. In this Age of Geniuses, who would be the true main character? Who would have the last laugh on the stage of competition? Who would be the true main character? However, the seats were limited. The spectator stands of the wind cloud platform could not accommodate all the cultivators. They had to hurry. If they were late, they would have made a wasted trip. The golden jade glazed ship moved very fast. Few spirit beasts or warships could keep up with it. Xiao Chun and the others watched the scenery on the deck and chatted casually. Suddenly, Xiao Chun thought of something. He asked, "Why do I not see Lung Liusu?" With her strength, she should have become a martial king after cultivating in the Holy Land for 2 years. That's right. Why is Lung Liusu not back? As the young pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Lung Liusu had not returned at such a crucial moment. When the crowd heard what Xiao Chun said, they could not help but feel it was strange. Murong Chong, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "She has already become a core disciple of the Phoenix's Passion Palace. She has already gone to the upper realm. The people of the 3 holy masters cannot come here to snatch luck." When the crowd heard this, they were astonished. At the same time, they felt it was strange how Murong Chong knew. After 6 days of non-stop flying at Mach 3, the Golden Jade glazed ship finally arrived at the Great Gene Nation's dragon sealing mountain. They only needed to fly for another half a day to reach the dragon sealing mountain. Jiang Qi and the other 2 elders had already walked out from the deck. They introduced the situation of the Great Gene Nation to Xiao Chun and the others. At the same time, they gave a simple explanation of the rules of the 5-Nation Youth Competition. The 5-Nation Youth Competition is split into the preliminaries and arena battles. No matter how many participants sign up, there are only 400 slots for the preliminaries. That is to say, only 400 people in the entire Tianwu continent can step onto the Wind Cloud platform. When Lu Suifeng heard this, he was startled. He said, "So strict? If so many people are eliminated in the first round, won't some of the strong participants be buried?" Jiang Qi smiled and said, "Yes, but such a situation rarely happens. The preliminaries are very simple and fair. You will understand when you get there." The closer the warship got to the dragon sealing mountain, the more warships they met. In the end, they would meet a warship every 100 meters. The warships were so densely packed that they covered the sky. There were at least 10,000 warships and countless flying spirit beasts. The scene was boundlessly vast, shocking everyone. The density of the warships was simply too high. Shin Manjun had no choice but to slow down the Golden Jade glazed ship and advance slowly. After 4 hours, Jiang Qi pointed to a mountain range in front and said, "That is the Dragon Sealing Mountain." Chapter 560. Xiao Chun and the others quickly looked in the direction that Jiang Qi pointed. They saw hundreds of towering peaks at the limits of their vision. The positioning of the peaks was very strange. They actually formed a huge ring. The boundless clouds in the middle of the ring-shaped mountain range were also different. It was also different from the rest. Compared to the surrounding white clouds, it was clearly much thicker, and its color was also deeper. From a distance, the ring-shaped mountain range and the clouds in the middle looked like a cage, trapping something. There were several tall towers on the peaks of the hundreds of mountains in the surroundings, and from time to time, there would be warships and flying spirit beasts resting on the peaks of the mountains. Xiao Chun felt it was strange. He said, "There are hundreds of peaks here. Which peak is Dragon Sealing Mountain?" Jiang Qi smiled faintly and said, "That is the one in the middle. However, because it was too tall, someone chopped it down long ago. You can't see it now. You will be able to see it when you get to the top of the ring-shaped mountain range." After traveling for 10 minutes, the Golden Jade glazed ship stopped on one of the peaks in the ring-shaped mountain range. Many warships and huge flying spirit beasts were already parked on the peak. Countless people headed for the tower at the top of the mountain. Jiang Qi led the 6 to follow the crowd and entered one of the towers. The registration for this competition was in the Great Hall. The registration process was rather simple. After checking the age of the 6 people, they registered the names of the sect participants. Then, they each received a dark dragon-shaped jade pendant. "Come, let's go to the top." After going through the circular staircase, the group arrived at the top of the tower with anticipation. The top floor did not have a roof. When the group stood there, they could look down at their surroundings, taking in the scenery for thousands of kilometers around. Many cultivators had already gathered at the top of the tower. Xiao Chun parted the crowd and looked at the mysterious center of the ring-shaped mountain range. What astonished Xiao Chun was that there was actually a large city in the center, surrounded by the mountains. It was no smaller than the Shihe province's capital. Looking down from the top of the tower, the buildings in the city looked like ants. Only some strange, circular stone pillars were several kilometers tall and looked relatively clear. There were hundreds of stone pillars scattered throughout the city. Some were tall, some were short, but they formed a strange pattern. Every stone pillar had a huge, coiling dragon carved on it. If one looked carefully, they would discover that this was a city built on the middle of a mountain. The enormous mountain peak had been chopped off at the waist by someone. Then, on top of it, a magnificent city had been built. Jiang Qi explained to the 6, "That is Dragon Sealing City. Below is the Broken Dragon Sealing Mountain. Do you see those dragon pillars?" The first round begins. All the participants on the towers of the 100 peaks of the ring-shaped mountain range will fly towards Dragon Sealing City at the same time. As long as they can stand on the dragon pillars, they will qualify for the arena battles. The 10 dragon pillars in the middle are obviously much taller. Those who stand on them can obtain the qualifications to become a seeded player. That is also where the competition is the most intense. As for the taller of the 10 pillars, they are dragon pillars. She has said, "Dragon, dragon, dragon, Chun of dragon spirit. Of Chun of the dragon pillars, Chen's spirit dragon the highest." After Lu Suifeng heard this, he said, "So, the first stage is actually so simple." When an old man from another nation heard this, he could not help but smile coldly. He said, "Ignorant. In every 5-nation youth competition, 1/3 of the participants fall to their deaths. This year, there will be even more. It is not as simple as you think." Jiang Qi followed up and said gravely, "That is indeed the case. You have to stand on the dragon pillar for 1 minute before you qualify for the arena battles. You cannot leave after touching it. If you're knocked down before you can even stand for 1 minute, you'll have to start all over again. The person who spoke earlier said, in 1 minute, you will have to endure endless attacks from all directions. Even if there aren't 10,000 participants, there are at least 7 or 8,000. You can imagine how bitter it will be when the time comes to compete for the 400 spots. When Lu Suifeng and the others heard this, they could not help but feel nervous. No wonder the first elder said that no one could take advantage of the situation to qualify for the arena battles. 1 minute was only 60 breaths. Normally, this would pass in a flash. However, if one wanted to stand on the dragon pillar for 1 minute and endure attacks from all directions, it would be very difficult. This was because one would not be fighting one-on-one. One would have to endure countless attacks from all directions. If one was not careful, one would fall. Those who could qualify to participate in the five-nation youth competition were all outstanding youths. Breaking through to Martial King at the age of 24, if they were not outstanding, what were they? However, among these 7 or 8,000 outstanding talents, only 400 true genius cultivators would be left after a round of cleansing. One could easily imagine how demonic the strength and talent of these 400 people were. The quality of the five-nation youth competition was flabbergasting. Jiang Qi wanted to befriend the person who spoke. He performed a cupped fist salute and said, I am Elder Jiang Qi of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. May I ask for your great name? The person at the side was only about 50 years old. However, he was full of vigor and aura. Clearly, he was a peak half-step martial monarch. When that person heard Jiang Qi's words, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, My great name is not that great. My family name is Du, and my given name is Hui. I am a chief supervisor of the Great Jin Nation's Breaking Saber Sect. Breaking Saber Sect. Jiang Qi thought for a while, but he could not think of any powerful sect in the Great Jin Nation called the Breaking Saber Sect. Du Hui smiled faintly and said, Brother Jiang, there is no need to overthink. The Breaking Saber Sect is just a third-rate sect in the Great Jin Nation. How many people have signed up? When he thought about it, it made sense. Although the Great Jin Nation had 10 great sects, there were bound to be some small sects as well. Jiang Qi pointed at Xiao Chun and the others and replied, Not many, only 6. A young disciple behind, Du Hui mocked, I have heard of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion as well. It seems to be one of the 3 great sects of the Great Jin Nation. Unexpectedly, they only have 6 people. Our Breaking Saber sect is a third-rate sect, yet we have 10-odd people. That person's tone was very pleased with himself. The pride that was unique to the disciples of the Great Jin Nation was contained in his words, making others feel uncomfortable. The Great Jin Nation had many spirit veins and abundant spiritual energy. It was also vast and boundless. For 10,000 years, it had suppressed the 4 great nations. Jiang Qi's expression turned slightly awkward. He did not expect the other party to be so rude at such a young age. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows slightly, and a sharp light flickered in his eyes. He said coldly, No matter how much rotten wood there is, it cannot be carved. To think that a third-rate sect in the Great Jin Nation could be so arrogant. Even an insignificant disciple dares to speak rudely to the older generation. Xiao Chun had finally seen the arrogance of the people of the Great Jin Nation. That young disciple said angrily, What do you mean by that? Are you calling us trash? You're just a disciple of a sect that is ranked at the bottom of the 4 great nations. Yet you speak so arrogantly. Don't let me, Song Qing, meet you in the arena battles. Senior brother, don't say that to him. How can he be qualified to enter the arena battles? When the many sect disciples and lone cultivators on the roof saw this scene, they all looked over with interest. Du Hui frowned slightly. He did not want to blow things up. He cupped his fist and said to Jiang Qi, Brother Jiang, this disciple was rash. Sorry. Although Du Hui said that, he did not get Song Qing to apologize. He only led the group of Breaking Saber sect disciples to the other side of the tower. Before leaving, Song Qing looked at Xiao Chun and the others mockingly, looking down on them. Lu Suifeng said angrily, Who are these people? They are just a third-rate sect in the great Jin nation. How do they speak like that? Jiangqi said helplessly. Never mind, the people of the great Jin nation are just like that. If Jiangqi had known that the old man was from the great Jin nation, he would not have had any intention of befriending him. When facing the people of the great Jin nation, he naturally had a superior attitude. The first stage of the preliminaries would only begin after everyone had arrived. There were still many sects that had not arrived yet. Everyone could only continue waiting. The matter with the Breaking Saber sect was just a small interlude. It passed very quickly. Time slowly went by. Suddenly, someone in the crowd on the roof exclaimed, "The Haotian sect's warship is coming." On a mountain peak, the people on several towers immediately raised their heads and looked over. A warship the size of a golden mountain flew over from the distance. The unique flag of the Haotian sect was on the bow of the warship. It was easy to tell with one glance. Xiao Chun sighed to himself. The charm of the super sects is indeed extraordinary. The moment they appeared, they attracted everyone's attention. I heard that the Haotian sect's Uchensi has already cultivated the morning sun incantation to the 13th layer. That day, there was a mysterious phenomenon of a rainbow light. Their sect master announced that their goal this time is to get into the top 10. It is not easy to get into the top 10. None of the super sects are easy to deal with. The crowd discussed. Soon, another warship flew over. Someone recognized it and said, "The Evil Moon Pavilion's people are here as well." Bai Zhan managed to get into the top 20 in the previous 5-nation selection. I wonder what rank he will get this time. The Drifting Snow Sword sects and the Supreme E-Palace's warships are here as well. How impressive. The true inheritors of these two sects managed to get into the top 10 in the previous 5-nation selection. I wonder if they can hold on to that position this time. The Sun Moon Pavilion's people are here as well. The people of the 10 great sects are all here. The warships of the 10 great sects arrived one by one. They casually found a mountain peak and stopped. Among them, the Drifting Snow Sword sect's warship actually stopped at the mountain peak that Xiao Chun was at. However, the Drifting Snow Sword sect's people chose a different tower. When Xiao Chun looked over, he discovered that the Drifting Snow Sword sect's people had all been asked to leave. Damn it! The Drifting Snow Sword sect's people are really damn tyrannical. The moment they arrived, they chased us all away. The cultivators who were chased down had no choice but to go to the pavilion that Xiao Chun and the others were at and start cursing. Someone smiled coldly and said, "You only dare to curse here. The Drifting Snow Sword sect already has hundreds of participants. If you don't go down, where will the others stand?" Xiao Chun ignored these people's quarrels. He fixed his gaze on a white figure on the tower in front. It was a young man. This young man wore white clothes and had a cold gaze. He stared at the tallest of the hundreds of dragon pillars in Dragon Ceiling City. This young man stood there quietly. Even though he did not move at all, he looked like a lonely sword. As he stood there, his sword intent soared through the clouds, spreading a chill everywhere. When Jiangqi saw the situation, he said softly, "That is the Drifting Snow Sword sect's first disciple, Lu Xiaoyan. He was ranked 9th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Back then, he was only 18 years old. Now that a few years have passed, his icy sword intent has become even more terrifying." Chapter 561. The people of the 8 noble clans are here. Just at this moment, someone among the many peaks in the ring-shaped mountain range shouted. Immediately, a clamor resounded throughout the mountain range. The people of the 8 noble clans are finally here. Every time, they dominate the top 8. I wonder if it will be the same this time. I don't think there will be any change. Even the super geniuses of the 10 great sects have given up. Who else can change? That is hard to say. Many of the geniuses participating in this 5-nation youth competition are outstanding talents from the Boundless Sea. I heard that the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xinyuan Zhantian, is very powerful. He is already an unrivaled half-step martial monarch. A great Jin nation cultivator said unconvinced. Unrivaled half-step martial monarch? That is only because he has not met the scions of the 8 noble clans yet. Any one of them would be able to defeat him. Furthermore, the Sima clan has already obtained the first rank 3 times in a row. The Sima clan's Sima Lingxian obtained the first rank in the previous 5-nation youth competition. If he can defend his first rank this time, then the Sima clan will have obtained the first rank 4 times in a row. 8 warships lined up in the distance. They were the warships of the Sima clan, the Bai clan, the Li clan, the Qian clan, the Wang clan, the Feng clan, the Nangong clan, and the Baiming clan. The 8 noble clans had many talents and were very strong. Even the 10 great sects could not compare to them. The moment they appeared, the atmosphere in the ring-shaped mountain range reached a climax. Everyone knew that the 8 noble clans had arrived. The first stage was about to begin. Who would obtain the qualifications to ascend to the Wind Cloud platform would be revealed soon. All participating cultivators, please wear your dragon-shaped jade pendant. I will count down from 10, and the first stage of the preliminaries will officially begin. After 7 or 8 minutes, a resonant voice resounded in Dragon Sealing City. The voice was infused with quintessence, so the tens of thousands of cultivators in the huge ring-shaped mountain range could hear it clearly. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. As the countdown rang out, the noisy mountain peak immediately became quiet. No one spoke. There was only the sound of the wind and the approaching number. All the cultivators' hearts were in their throats. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The instant the countdown ended, all the participants in the towers of the ring-shaped mountain range, the outstanding talents of the ancient desolate land, the boundless sea, and the 5 great empires all moved at the same time. Xiao, xiao, xiao. All sorts of sonic booms rang out continuously as they headed for Dragon Sealing City in the center. As far as the eye could see, there were young cultivators leaping down from all directions. There were more than 10,000 of them. 3 years of waiting, day and night of bitter cultivation. On this day, at this moment, all of the geniuses and outstanding talents under the starry sky began to move. Xiaochen wasn't in a rush to jump down. He looked calmly at the excited expressions on the faces of the various outstanding talents. At this moment, his heart was as calm as still water. The thick dark clouds above Dragon Sealing City churned continuously as the auras of countless young disciples stirred them up. A strong wind blew, and dark clouds rolled. Vaguely, a resonant dragon roar resounded from within the heavy, dark clouds. The dragon roar resounded throughout the world, shaking the ancients and the present. The cultivators and the spectator stands all felt a great aura bearing down on them. The clouds churned and spat out a great aura. An ancient and dignified aura spread out in the mountain range, freezing the air. Pooh! Suddenly, a small piece of the boundless dark cloud shattered. A dazzling golden light tore through the air and descended. Dragon Sealing City was dark all year round. The sun could not be seen. The thick dark clouds had not scattered for thousands of years. However, at this moment, a golden light actually descended. Someone in the crowd immediately exclaimed, "That is the golden light from the upper realm's Kunlun realm. It is the light of divinity." The previous 5-nation youth competition did not have such a scene. It is indeed the light of divinity. In the previous age of geniuses, there was such a mysterious phenomenon. It looks like this is indeed the age of geniuses. The vast auras of tens of thousands of geniuses attracted the attention of the upper realm. According to rumor, the one who ranks highly in this 5-nation youth competition will have a chance to enter the upper realm as a martial monarch. Now that I think about it, it is true. The intense battles on the 400 dragon pillars had already started. 30 to 40 geniuses fought over each dragon pillar. The scene was incredibly miserable. For the sake of the 400 spots, everyone had done their best. Everyone knew what this 5-nation youth competition meant. If they missed this opportunity, they would not be able to make it. If they missed this opportunity, they would forever be a supporting character in this great age of cultivators. The 10 tallest dragon pillars in the middle were currently very calm. Not many people fought over them. Everyone knew what these 10 dragon pillars meant. The most intense battles would take place there. Without strong strength, if one tried to fight for them, they would instantly lose their qualification for the preliminaries. The 8 noble clans' towers had 8 noble scions standing on a roof. The 8 of them chatted cheerfully, appearing very calm. To everyone, obtaining 400 spots would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. However, these 8 people did not care about it all. They were not worried at all. Hee. Brothers, I, Qianwen, will take my leave first. You guys continue chatting. Among the 8 noble scions, a man wearing gorgeous robes of alternating blue and white smiled gently and performed a cupped fist salute before leaving. Xiao. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or not, but after he left, another hole appeared in the thick, dark clouds above. A dazzling golden light descended from the sky like a sharp sword. Soon, only 2 of the 8 noble scions remained. They were the Bai clans Bai Qi and the Sima clans Sima Lingxian. These 2 were the champions of the previous 5-nation youth competition. Every time a noble scion leaped down, a resplendent golden light would descend from the sky. Those who paid attention would be astonished when they saw it. Sima Lingxian was very tall and slender. His eyebrows were extremely sharp, and his eyes were as resplendent as the stars. His face was very handsome. It looked like he was carved by the gods. There was a kind of person in the world who was born extraordinary. Even in the vast sea of people, one look would be able to separate him from the rest of the world. Without a doubt, Sima Lingxian was such a person. Just by standing there, he gave off a strong aura. Everyone could not help but feel a pressure in their hearts. Bai Qi took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. Then, he stood before the railing and prepared to leap down. Sima Lingxian turned his body slightly and looked at Bai Qi. He nodded and said, Bai Qi, I heard that you completely practiced the most difficult 4-season saber technique of your Bai clan. In the past 3,000 years, you are the first cultivator under the age of 30 in the Bai clan to practice this saber technique to great perfection. Bai Qi did not deny it. He smiled gently and said, What's wrong? Are you afraid? You must be joking. Sima Lingxian laughed loudly and said, Bai Qi, I just hope that you will not lose as badly as you did 3 years ago. It would be good if you could give me some pressure. After Sima Lingxian spoke, he laughed loudly and leaped onto the railing. He stared at the tallest of the 400 dragon pillars, and a strong aura spread out from his body. Who? A strong wind immediately blew from the distance, making Sima Lingxuan's robes flutter. When his aura reached its peak, Sima Lingxian pushed off the railing heavily and flew towards the tallest dragon pillar. Pooh! 8 beams of golden light shot down from 10 kilometers above. The golden lights were very dazzling and beautiful. They encased Sima Lingxian and moved with him in the air. Damn! Divine light enveloping him. How strong is Sima Lingxian exactly? Such a strange, mysterious phenomenon attracted the gazes of all the cultivators in the surrounding mountains. Bai Qi clenched his right fist tightly. His expression was somewhat unsightly. 3 years ago, although he was ranked second, he did not last more than 10 moves against Sima Lingxian. He had allowed Sima Lingxian to climb to the top without any pressure. Sima Lingxian, the 4-season saber technique is not as simple as you think. This time, I, Bai Qi, will definitely take back the glory that belongs to me. Bai Qi gently pushed off the ground and his figure floated up. Unexpectedly, his target was the tallest dragon pillar as well. For beams of golden light descended from the sky. However, they did not move with Bai Qi. There was a gap between them and Sima Lingxian. The competition lasted for 5 or 6 minutes, but no one managed to climb the dragon pillar. Amid the saber lights and sword images, several cultivators fell down, injured. Miserable cries rang out. If one was unlucky and suffered a sneak attack from too many people, they would die. Xiao Chun swept his gaze through the crowd. He had a rough idea of how to obtain a spot. His gaze fixed on the outermost dragon pillar. Xiao Chun pushed off the ground heavily and shot forward like an arrow leaving a bow. 8 small holes appeared in the dark clouds in the sky. Just as the 8 beams of golden light were about to land, for some reason, the small holes instantly closed up with a shio sound. Of course, no one noticed this small detail. Far away from the most intense competition in the center, Xiao Chun headed for the most unremarkable dragon pillar at the periphery. Even so, there were still 30 people fighting over this dragon pillar. The battles around the dragon pillar were exceptionally intense. The dragon pillar was empty, but no one dared to stand on it. Earlier, when a few people tried to stand on it, they were targeted. That miserable state was not too long ago. Xiao, just as the 30 people fought, a figure suddenly appeared on the dragon pillar. That person was dressed in white and had a slender saber at his waist. He had a calm expression without any fluctuations. Where did this brat come from? How dare he snatch our spot? How reckless! Beat him up. When the 30 people saw Xiao Chun stand on the dragon pillar, they stopped fighting without saying a word. Then, they launched all sorts of attacks at Xiao Chun from all directions. The weakest of the people attacking were martial kings. There were many peaks superior grade martial kings. One or two of them were even half-step martial monarchs. Coincidentally, the first to attack was the half-step martial monarch Song Qing of the Breaking Saber Gate. When he saw Xiao Chun standing on the dragon pillar, he smiled coldly to himself. This brat is just a sect disciple of the great Qi nation. Does he think that anyone can stand on this dragon pillar? Even Song Qing was not in a rush to stand on it. It was not easy to face everyone's attacks for a minute. He had to wait until everyone's essence was exhausted before he was confident of standing on it for a minute. Chapter 562. Bang! All sorts of lights landed on the white figure. Light exploded, and in the midst of chaos, the figure was directly blown to pieces. Is he dead? Everyone felt it was strange. They felt that this was easier. However, when they looked carefully, they discovered that he had indeed died without a complete corpse. Only then did they relax. Someone laughed loudly and said, "He can't even block one move, and he dares to join the fun? He is truly reckless." Is that so? Just at this moment, a deep, cold laugh came from behind the crowd. Everyone turned their heads to look. They saw the figure that they had just killed. He was dressed in white robes and had a saber hanging at his waist. He had a calm expression as he reappeared. Wu Kuei breaks the heavens. Xiao Chun could not be bothered with this group of people. He directly executed the lightning tribulation saber technique. He drew his saber, and a resplendent pillar of light elongated. The cultivators who had just turned their heads thought that they had blasted Xiao Chun into pieces. Suddenly, they encountered such an intense attack and were caught off guard. The 10-odd people in a straight line immediately had their protective essence shattered by the pillar of light, causing them to fall. Several of the younger cultivators with weaker cultivations vomited large mouthfuls of blood and cried out miserably as they fell from the sky. The dragon pillar was more than 2 kilometers tall. If one did not circulate their essence and fell from such a height, even if they did not die, they would be severely injured. Xiao Chun managed to defeat most of the group of 30 people. He only used a small trick, the life bestowal spell. This saved Xiao Chun a lot of effort. He could use less essence and did not have to bring out all his trump cards. A look of horror flashed in the eyes of Song Qing, who was hiding in the crowd. He had not expected Xiao Chun to be so strong. The great Qi nation was the weakest of the 5 great nations. Furthermore, this fellow came from a small sect. Song Qing originally thought that he was just an ordinary genius. However, when Xiao Chun attacked, he instantly knocked down 10-odd people. With Song Qing's insight, he immediately understood what was going on. Xiao Chun was not as simple as Song Qing thought. Xiao Chun's strength was equal to his, perhaps even slightly stronger. No, I absolutely cannot let this brat participate in the arena battles. A ruthless look flashed in Song Qing's eyes as he hid in the crowd. Everyone, let's attack together. We can't let this kid snatch away our spots. This guy is too despicable. He actually launched a sneak attack on us. He shouted loudly, but Song Qing kept retreating. He didn't intend to take the lead at all. Kill. There were very few spots, and none of them wanted to give up. Even though they knew that Xiao Chun was stronger than any of them, they wouldn't give up so easily. Xiao Chun glanced coldly at Song Qing, who had hidden far away. Then, he ignored him and focused on the group of genius cultivators before him. Those who came to participate in the competition were all cultivators with outstanding talent. They were not martial kings who cultivated trashy cultivation techniques. They all had their own trump cards. Wanting to deal with 10-odd peak martial kings in one go was clearly not a wise thing to do. Xiao Chan swept his gaze around and locked on to the 3 strongest people. He had to establish his might in order to completely intimidate this group of people. Blue Dragon Tail Whip, Xiao Chan shouted, and his figure moved in a strange arc in midair. It was like a huge true dragon's tail swung gently. A boundless strong wind blew as he pierced through the dense crowd. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's clear eyes turned scarlet. A boundless killing intent surged out. The peak superior grade martial king, Xiao Chan, locked on to immediately felt the pressure on him increase. Massacre, hatred, rage, and all sorts of negative emotions erupted in his mind. His movements immediately slowed. By the time he reacted, he discovered that Xiao Chen's pitch-black saber was already before his neck. His eyes immediately revealed an expression of extreme horror. Xiao Chan flipped his palm, and his saber turned into the back of the saber. Then, he chopped at the other party's neck. If Xiao Chan was not an enemy, there was no need to kill him. Offending the sect behind him was not a good thing either. The strongest of the 3 martial kings managed to survive. However, he cried out miserably as the essence on the back of the saber knocked him to the ground. Although all this took a long time to describe, from the moment Xiao Chan used the Blue Dragon Tail Whip to the moment the other party fell, only a moment had passed. It was so fast that no one could keep up with Xiao Chen's rhythm. Several of the cultivators in front were still moving forward due to inertia. Xiao Chen looked around and fixed his gaze on the second peak martial king. Then, he used Wu Kuei shakes the heavens, and a purple divine Wu Kuei tree descended from the sky. Due to the difference in strength, that martial king could only resist for a few breaths of time before the divine Wu Kuei tree suppressed him and sent him crashing into Dragon Sealing City. Only now did everyone react. There were many attacks of different colors and all sorts of states. Saber chi, sword chi, and spear chi flew in all directions. There were countless of them. Even with Xiao Chen's strength, if he received these attacks head-on, he would suffer significant internal injuries. His figure trembled slightly as he executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations and turned into 9 figures. Bang! 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 As the shock waves exploded, several clones were blasted into nothingness. However, Xiao Chen's main body took advantage of the chaos to arrive beside the 3rd peak martial king. This time, Xiao Chan did not use any techniques. He clashed with that person with his saber. When the weapons clashed, a surging essence exploded out. The huge difference in strength caused the other party's weapon to shatter into countless pieces. His palms split open and blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. Xiao Chen defeated 3 people in 3 moves. Furthermore, he was clearly the strongest person among them. The others immediately stopped what they were doing and carefully took a few steps back. Xiao Chan sheathed his saber and said calmly to the crowd, "Go somewhere else. This dragon pillar is mine." Xiao Chen's calm tone left no room for doubt. Furthermore, he displayed great strength. His image of Xiao Chan immediately became unfathomable in their minds. Uchi. Just at this moment, a superior grade martial king suddenly launched a sneak attack. While Xiao Chan was speaking, this superior grade martial king silently attacked from behind. This superior grade martial king's concealment was on point. As he moved quickly, there was no sound of wind. He did not leak any killing chi. This was a perfect sneak attack. Unfortunately, this superior grade martial king met Xiao Chan, a cultivator that could not be judged by common sense. Breaking armor, seizing the heart. It was like Xiao Chan had eyes at the back of his head. He quickly turned around and executed the final 2 moves of the Dragon Claw Fist in an instant. The breaking armor fist broke through the other party's protective essence. The seizing the heart pierced through the other party's chest at lightning speed. In an instant, the person who was alive a moment ago turned into a corpse in the blink of an eye and fell to the ground. "Let's go." We can't stay here any longer." When the others saw the situation, they were completely frightened. They no longer had any wishful thinking, and they all scattered. As for Song Qing, he had already fled far away when he saw that the situation was not good. Xiao Chun could not be bothered with this person. If Song Qing obtained one of the 400 spots, he would have a chance to meet him in the arena battles. If Song Qing could not even qualify, then there was no need to care about him. The world turned quiet. Xiao Chun stood on the dragon pillar calmly. This time, he was truly standing on it. How long was 1 minute? It was only 60 breaths. If no one disturbed him, it would pass very quickly. 9, 7, Xiao Chun counted the time in his heart. By the time the others saw the mysterious phenomenon, it was already too late. 1 minute had finally passed. Huangdang, Huangdang. The 1-kilometer-long dragon pillar under Xiao Chun's feet shook violently. The dragon carvings around the stone pillar instantly came to life. Boom! The spiraling stone dragon roared ferociously. Every scale on its body gave off a golden light. Finally, it soared into the sky and into the clouds. The dragon roared and reverberated throughout the valley. The huge dragon tore through the thick, dark clouds and flew into the mysterious distance. A golden pillar of light descended from the distant sky, encasing Xiao Chun on the stone pillar. Someone succeeded. Who is it? Which one of the 8 noble clans? Or is it a disciple of one of the 10 great sects? Who is this person? How come I have never heard of him before? He looks unfamiliar. Could this be his first time participating in the 5-nation youth competition? That can't be. Unexpectedly, a newcomer obtained the top spot. Xiao Chun, who was enveloped in the light, immediately attracted the gazes of the tens of thousands of people in the tower. Everyone was very surprised. First Elder, Xiao Chun succeeded. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's second Elder said excitedly, revealing a joyful expression. Jiangqi appeared rather calm. He smiled faintly and said, "Quantity is not important. As long as it is the essence, that is enough." When the breaking saber gates, Du Hui heard these words, he felt very uncomfortable. Earlier, his disciple had mocked Xiao Chun for being a country bumpkin who came from a small place. However, Xiao Chun's disciple was the first to qualify. As for Song Qing, he had been scared off by Xiao Chun, not even having the courage to fight. The golden pillar of light lasted for a full minute before it slowly descended. The instant the light scattered, the smooth stone pillar shrank back into the ground with a shio sound. The 2-kilometer-tall pillar descended into the ground in a second. This made Xiao Chun feel like he was on an elevator in an amusement park in his previous life. As far as the eye could see, the surrounding buildings were lined up neatly. It seemed like they followed some sort of pattern. The buildings in Dragon Ceiling City gave off an ancient and grand feeling. A heavy and ancient aura washed over Xiao Chun. The weight of history was evident here. Xiao Chun picked up the dragon-shaped jade pendant hanging at his waist and looked at it. The originally dim jade pendant was now filled with vibrant colors. There was a tiny golden dragon in the translucent jade pendant. It swam around slowly, looking very interesting. Pooh! Pooh! A cool breeze suddenly blew over, brushing aside the hair in front of Xiao Chun's forehead, which was covered by a blue strip of cloth, revealing his delicate and handsome face. When Xiao Chun looked up, he saw a middle-aged man in yellow robes silently approaching. The cool breeze came from this person. Xiao Chun was mildly startled. If it were not for that cool breeze, he would not have sensed this person's arrival. That was to say, this person could kill him silently, as easily as flipping his hand. That cool breeze was probably purposely sent out by this person. Xiao Chun did not dare to be disrespectful to someone of such cultivation. He performed a cupped fist salute and asked, "May I know who Senior is?" Chapter 563. The yellow-robed, middle-aged man glanced at the dragon-shaped jade pendant at Xiao Chun's waist. He smiled faintly and said, "I am the organizer of the 5-nation youth competition. What is your name? Do you have a sect?" So, he is the organizer of the 5-nation youth competition. No wonder he has such a high cultivation. Xiao Chun nodded and said, I am Xiao Chun from the great Qi nation's heavenly saber pavilion. The yellow-robed, middle-aged man thought for a while before saying, "Come with me. I will bring you to the heavenly saber pavilion's residence. The arena battles will start in 3 days. You can rest there for the next few days. If you have nothing to do, you can walk around the city." The two of them moved very fast. They leaped over many tall buildings. In a few breaths of time, they arrived at an independent courtyard. There were only a few small rooms in the courtyard. It looked very simple. Although it was simple, it could be described as crude. The yellow-robed, middle-aged man explained. The style of the courtyard is based on the strength of the sect and the performance of the sect disciples in the Five-Nation Youth Competition. If there are no objections, I will take my leave first. Xiao Chun expressed his understanding. In an entire continent, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was not considered a big sect. In the past, they did not have any outstanding disciples. However, in this Five-Nation Youth Competition, Xiao Chun, would definitely change the situation. He would not let the descendants of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion live in such a wretched place. Being the first to qualify for the next round had a lot to do with Xiao Chun's choice. People with his strength would have all gone to fight for the seated spot. The inheritors of the 10 great sects, the heirs of the 8 noble clans, and the top sects of the 4 nations surrounded the 10 tallest dragon pillars. The heavenly sword gates Ding Feng Chou, the beast-taming abodes Mo, the myriad fiend palaces Mu Xinya, Chu Mu, and the thousand-sword pavilion Xiaxian were all carefully testing the waters. It was impossible for them to fight to the death with each other in advance. They could only test each other out. Hence, they were even more cautious. They could not decide who would stand on top in a short period of time. The arena battles had 2 elimination rounds. Each round required 20 matches, eliminating 100 people. Only after the 2 elimination rounds could one qualify for the finals. The seeded spot did not need to participate in the first elimination round and could directly enter the second round. This was equivalent to having 20 fewer matches. Naturally, such an advantage made people jealous. The top-seeded contestant had even more benefits. He could skip 2 elimination rounds and directly enter the finals. Apart from that, the seeded player was also a fight for reputation. Simply put, it was a fight for face. Xiao Chun had his own ideas. In his opinion, as long as he handled it well, he wouldn't have to reveal his true strength in the first 20 battles. Moreover, seeded players were more likely to be in the eye of the storm and become the target of others' research. Keeping a low profile would always bring unexpected benefits. The one who had the last laugh would be the real winner. Xiao Chun did not rush into his room to rest. Instead, he leaped onto the roof and sat down to watch the fight for the first seed. Sima Lingxian was the most outstanding genius of the Sima clan in the past few thousand years. He was the undisputed champion of the previous Five-Nation Youth Competition. Xiao Chun was also very curious about what kind of person he was. Surrounded by the 8 beams of golden light, Sima Lingxian arrived before the tallest and largest dragon pillar without any fear. His gaze was fiery and strong self-confidence filled his eyes. It was like the tallest dragon pillar already belonged to him. Aside from him, no one else could stand on it. The first seed was him, Sima Lingxian. This kind of strong self-confidence, coupled with his own strength, made his aura seem extremely terrifying. Regular cultivators would automatically feel inferior with just one glance. If they fought with him, they would lose before they even started. Xiao Chun muttered, "What strong self-confidence! This is an unshakable confidence in his own strength. This confidence makes him stronger, and his strength makes him even more confident. With the two complementing each other, it forms a unique aura." Sima Lingxian was indeed not simple. However, once his self-confidence suffered a blow, he would fall to rock bottom. It would be hard for him to climb back up. This was the principle of being too firm and easy to break. One could be confident, but one could not be blindly confident. Of the 3,000 great realms, the Tianwu continent and the Sky Dome realm were just ordinary great realms. The other great realms definitely had stronger geniuses. While one was confident, one had to remember to keep a low profile. Only when one truly stood at the peak could one look down on others. This was Xiao Chen's point of view. It was also the way he conducted himself. Hence, he did not fight for the first seed title. There was no need for it. Suddenly, Xiao Chen exclaimed softly. He smiled faintly and said, "Someone wants to fight with Sima Lingxian for the first seed. Now, we can see how strong you are." High in the sky, Sima Lingxian looked at Bai Qi, who was opposite the dragon pillar. He smiled gently and said, "Bai Qi, do you want to taste defeat now? The arena battles have not started yet. If your mental state is not stable, it will affect your strength." Feeling the absolute confidence in Sima Lingxuan's words, Bai Qi said calmly, "If I retreat without a fight, my mental state will truly suffer a blow. If I can relax, so what if I lose?" In the previous five-nation youth competition, Bai Qi was the undisputed second rank. He was also a rare genius of the Bai noble clan. Look, Bai Qi and Sima Lingxian are fighting. He lost miserably 3 years ago. I wonder if Bai Qi can turn the tables? I heard that Bai Qi practiced the Bai clan's most difficult four-season saber technique to great perfection. Now, his strength has increased explosively. I heard that the Bai clan's ancestor obtained the four-season saber technique from a nameless ancient grave. After he found it, no one could understand it. It was only after the Bai clan's genius, Bai Shuihe, comprehended it that he pointed out a path for the later generations. That is indeed the case. The four-season saber technique is incredibly strong. It can be said to be the strongest martial technique under heaven ranked martial techniques. Even though Bai Shuihe pointed out a path, no one has ever heard of anyone being able to understand Bai Shuihe's meaning before the age of 30. Who knows? Bai Qi might really be able to use this four-season saber technique to wash away his humiliation. The tens of thousands of cultivators in the ring-shaped mountain range immediately felt excited. After 3 years, this scene reappeared. These two were undoubtedly going to fight a fierce battle. If they really fought, it would be very exciting. Sima Lingxian looked at Bai Qi and smiled. It is said that the saber intent of a bladesman is stronger than the sword intent of a swordsman before advancing to martial sage. Bai Qi, I will not take advantage of the difference in our cultivations. If your saber intent can defeat my sword intent, I will let you have the first seed. The moment Sima Lingxian said this, everyone was dumbfounded. Saber intent was very difficult to form, at least 10 times harder than sword intent. However, once saber intent was formed, its might would definitely be stronger than sword intent of the same level. As long as one advanced to martial sage, one sword intent and saber intent would have their own souls. Bai Qi's black pupils constricted slightly. He asked, "Are you serious?" A strong self-confidence flickered on Sima Lingxuan's handsome face. He laughed loudly and said, "Of course, I am serious. Since I want to defeat you, I will make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly. I will defeat you in what you are most proud of. Otherwise, what would be the point?" Arrogant. Bai Qi was truly enraged. Although he was not as strong as Sima Lingxian, he did not feel that they were far apart. However, Sima Lingxian was overbearing. Since ancient times, there had been a conclusion about saber intent and sword intent. Saber intent was hard to form and practice. However, its might was definitely stronger than sword intent. However, Sima Lingxian was so arrogant today. He only used sword intent to compete with saber intent. He truly did not care about Bai Qi at all. Xiao Chun, who was on the roof of Dragon Ceiling City, felt it was strange as well. The strength of saber intent was a publicly acknowledged fact. Back then, when the bloody bladesman Sun Guangxuan advanced to Martial Monarch, he was able to beat up a small perfection inferior grade Martial Monarch, Northern Sea Alliance elder to the point where he could not retaliate. This was because of saber intent. Small perfection saber intent could increase a cultivator's offensive power by 30%. When one advanced to Martial Monarch, the base number increased. The 30% increase became even more horrifying. Saber intent was sufficient for a bladesman to have the ability to challenge those of higher cultivation realms. Xiao Chun was a bladesman himself. He had a deep understanding of this. He muttered to himself, Is this fellow really arrogant? Or does he really have an unrivaled strength? Bai Qi drew his saber in rage. A surging saber intent immediately surged out, and the long saber blade hummed endlessly. Combined with Bai Qi's strong strength, when the saber intent spread out, the sabers of all the bladesmen in the ring-shaped mountain range trembled slightly. A pure saber intent shot out from the tip of the saber, turning into a sharp, formless shockwave as it shot towards Sima Lingxian. The sharp, formless shockwave represented Bai Qi's rage, his pride, and many other things. With hatred in his heart, there was no point in saying anything. I'll let this strong saber intent settle everything, prove that I, Bai Qi, am not as weak as Sima Lingxian made me out to be. Above the ring-shaped mountain range, the many cultivators could feel the strength of the saber intent in the distance. They all praised it in soft voices. The bladesmen among the cultivators felt it the most. When they looked at this saber, their hearts filled with respect and anticipation. The world came with the sword before the saber. Although the strength of a bladesman or swordsman depended on the individual's performance, due to historical reasons, the status of a bladesman was always lower than that of a swordsman. This could be seen from a number of bladesmen and swordsmen on the continent. Furthermore, a truly unrivaled bladesman had not appeared for many years already. Most of the experts in the world cultivated the sword. The famous Thunder King from 1,000 years ago also cultivated the sword. Now, the strongest genius, Sima Lingxian, also cultivated the sword. The saber had been silent for too long. Now, the great Ji nations Bai Qi could be considered the most famous bladesman of the younger generation. When Bai Qi swung his saber at Sima Lingxian, he carried the hopes of these bladesmen. They hoped that a true bladesman would become unrivaled in the world again. Xiao Chun, who was on the roof, nodded and said softly, "Based on the range of the saber intent, it should have reached small perfection. Let's see how Sima Lingxian deals with this." Sima Lingxuan's handsome face did not show much surprise. He smiled and said, "You just touched the threshold of saber intent a year ago. In such a short time, you have already reached small perfection. Not bad. Unfortunately, your opponent is me, Sima Lingxian." A strong self-confidence spread out from Sima Lingxuan's body. That self-confidence seemed to condense into an aura. The wind in the air could not withstand this aura. It flowed wildly, kicking up a strong wind. This caused Sima Lingxuan's clothes and hair to flutter continuously. Chapter 564. Above the vast dragon-ceiling city, all the geniuses under the starry heavens seemed to be dwarfed by this confidence. Countless stars flickered in the night sky. He was silently telling everyone that he, Sima Lingxian, was the most resplendent star. When Sima Lingxian drew his sword, it gave off a sharp light. The strong wind that blew immediately surrounded the sword. The strong and surging sword intent slowly rose. Soon, it reached small perfection. Then, it continued to climb to 40% comprehension. Just when everyone thought that this was the end, the sword intent continued to rise. 50% comprehension, 60% comprehension. Sima Lingxuan's sword intent had actually reached 60% comprehension. Another 10% would be the true great perfection sword intent. That was a level that several seniors of the Sword Dao could not reach. A solid and sharp energy surged out from the tip of Sima Lingxuan's sword intent. In an instant, it broke the formless energy formed by Bai Qi's saber intent. Pu Ci. After breaking the saber intent, Sima Lingxuan's sword intent dimmed slightly. However, its form was scattered, but its intent remained. Its sharpness did not diminish. Kaxie. Just as the sword intent was about to strike Bai Qi, Sima Lingxian sheathed his sword. The sharp sword intent instantly scattered. The sword intent turned into a formless sword wind and spread wildly in all directions. A few unlucky cultivators were struck by this sword wind and immediately suffered minor injuries. The many cultivators on the top of the thousands of towers in the surrounding mountain ranges were silent. Not a single sound could be heard. They had expected Sima Lingxian to be strong. However, they had not expected him to be this strong. Unexpectedly, he could crush his opponent's saber intent within the same generation. A small perfection saber intent was equivalent to a 30% comprehended saber intent. However, Sima Lingxian comprehended his sword intent to 60% comprehended, twice as strong as his opponent. Although Bai Qi's saber intent was strong, it was a tragedy for him to run into Sima Lingxian. 60% comprehended sword intent. Bai Qi did not lose unjustly. Sima Lingxian is indeed Sima Lingxian. The title of the top genius is indeed not an exaggeration. The top seed is definitely him. He is confident and talented. Furthermore, he has the support of a noble clan. His future is destined to be extraordinary. I reckon the Sima family is going to win 4 consecutive championships. If this continues for a long time, I'm afraid they will eventually become the strongest family in the world. The many cultivators in the mountain range all sighed as they looked at Sima Lingxian, who was enveloped by the 8 beams of golden light. They were not stingy with their praises. At the very edge of the 400 dragon pillars, the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xianyuan Zhantian, looked at Sima Lingxian, who had used his sword intent to defeat Bai Qi. He revealed a faint smile and said softly, "Interesting. This 5-nation youth competition is indeed the right choice. It is much better than the elite competition in the Boundless Sea. I finally found a place where I can bring out my strength." Everyone says that Bai Qi did not lose unjustly. However, I feel that he lost unjustly. Haha. Not only is this Sima Lingxian strong, but his schemes are also terrifying. While Xianyuan Zhantian was in a daze, the other competitors who were also fighting for this dragon pillar all smiled sinisterly. "Fool, to think you were still in a daze at this moment." He brandished his weapon and sent a sharp attack at Xianyuan Zhantian. Bang! Xianyuan Zhantian recovered his wits and smiled faintly. He casually swung his heavenly war halberd, and an azure flood dragon circled around the halberd before exploding. The weapons of the competitors who sneak attacked Xianyuan Zhantian all flew out. Hee, the game is over. Little friends, I have no time to play with you. Xianyuan Zhantian smiled coldly. Before everyone's shocked gazes, he swept his heavenly war halberd everywhere. A strong dragon-shaped shockwave burst out. The crowd could not even block one move and fell. Behind the central dragon pillar, Bai Qi had an extremely stunned expression on his face. After a while, he suddenly reacted and said angrily, "Sima Lingxian, you did that on purpose?" Sima Lingxian laughed loudly and said without any fear, "That's right. I did that on purpose. If you admit defeat, you can go." Bai Qi was not satisfied in his heart. He could only endure the bitterness in his heart. However, he could only leave helplessly to fight for the other 9 seated spots. The two's exchange confused others. However, Xiao Chun, who was on the roof, understood what was going on. Sima Lingxian had set this up from the very start. He knew how powerful the 4-season saber technique was, and that Bai Qi was not the Bai Qi from 3 years ago. Sima Lingxian would not be able to obtain an easy victory. Hence, he purposely competed in saber intent. Normal people would know that saber intent was stronger than sword intent. However, Sima Lingxian still wanted to compete. There had to be a reason behind it. However, the situation forced him to. Sima Lingxian had said those words before everyone. Even if Bai Qi knew it was inappropriate, he had no choice but to brace himself. Furthermore, Bai Qi felt that his saber intent might not necessarily be weaker than his opponent's sword intent. Hence, he dove in. Thus, everyone saw Sima Lingxian easily defeat Bai Qi. This made Sima Lingxian's confidence even stronger. However, in the end, this was just an open scheme and not a hidden one. Sima Lingxian had indeed relied on his own strength to defeat Bai Qi. No matter how sullen Bai Qi felt, he had still lost this battle. The layman watched for the excitement, while the expert watched for the artistry. From Sima Lingxian's display, Xiao Chun had a rough understanding of his strength. Sima Lingxian's sword intent was very strong. However, when he withdrew his sword, he did not control the sword intent flying around. Xiao Chun could clearly feel that Sima Lingxian had wanted to control him at that time. If he did not, the sword wind flying around would be even stronger, more than enough to kill the cultivator struck by it. The sword intent that he can control perfectly should only be 50% comprehended. Forcefully raising it to 60% is already his limit. Xiao Chun thought to himself, Sima Lingxian is very strong. However, he is not so strong that he is undefeatable. The strongest thing about him is that horrifying, heaven-defying confidence in his heart. While Sima Lingxian and Bai Qi fought, the fights for the other dragon pillars did not stop. However, the spectators focused their attention on the two of them. At this moment, the fights for the dragon pillars in several places had already concluded. Several people stood firmly on the dragon pillars. Their expressions were either excited or calm as they waited for the golden dragon to soar. Great waves washed away the sand. Under this starry sky, the true elite geniuses would appear one by one. Rumble, rumble. As 1 minute slowly passed, the huge dragons circling the stone pillars under these people started to struggle. They looked like they would soar into the sky at any moment. However, just as the huge dragons were about to soar into the sky, they suddenly stopped moving. It was like time had frozen. The huge dragon sculptures that came to life were all motionless. It was like something shocking was about to appear, so they did not dare to be presumptuous. The participants who qualified could not help but show startled expressions. They quickly looked towards the center of the plaza. They saw Sima Lingxian standing calmly on the tallest and largest dragon pillar. The huge dragon scales circling the stone pillar immediately turned golden. Then, they turned into a golden dragon soaring into the sky. A great dragon is indeed a great dragon. The great dragon has not moved yet. How can a little dragon move first? Some of the cultivators who had watched the previous five-nation youth competitions laughed gently. There was no surprise on Xiao Chen's face. It had always been like this in the past. As long as someone stood on the dragon pillar in the middle, they would not be able to do so. Even if a participant stood on the other dragon pillars, the huge dragons circling the stone pillars would not be able to fly. This was because the dragon in the middle was a true great dragon, the king of dragons. Once the king appeared, the other huge dragons had to retreat. Sima Lingxian, who was encased in the golden light, looked at the dumbfounded people around him. His lips curled up in a smile, and the confidence in his heart grew even stronger. 3 years ago, Sima Lingxian, stood here proudly as well. No one was a match for him. 3 years later, when the age of geniuses arrived, Sima Lingxian, was still standing here. He wanted to prove that even in this age of geniuses, Sima Lingxian, could still stand at the peak, becoming the main character of this age. He wanted to bring the luck of the Sky Dome realm to the Kunlun realm and meet the geniuses of the other great realms. Then, he would trample on his opponents one by one. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was the main character. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was worthy of standing here. Only he, Sima Lingxian, was qualified to obtain the luck of the Sky Dome realm, to compete with the heavens. Roar, roar, roar. Just as Sima Lingxuan's strong confidence spread into the sky above Dragon Ceiling City, a boundless strong wind blew. A resonant dragon roar suddenly came from the 400 dragon pillars. That dragon roar resounded everywhere. As the sound waves spread out, they scattered the strong wind that Sima Lingxuan's aura gathered. A huge golden dragon soared into the sky. Although that golden dragon was smaller than Sima Lingxuan's golden dragon, its aura clashed with Sima Lingxuan's, not giving way at all. The golden dragon clashed with the other party's king's aura and soared into the clouds. Xinyuan Zhantian stood on the stone pillar, wearing purple flood dragon robes and a purple cloak on his back. He held a halberd in his hand. When Xinyuan Zhantian saw Sima Lingxian looking at him in shock, he revealed a flirtatious expression on his unruly face. He did not show any fear, just because Sima Lingxian had just defeated Bai Qi. The golden dragon above Xinyuan Zhantian chased relentlessly and caught up to the huge dragon's speed. Then, they advanced side by side, tearing through the thick, dark clouds. What's going on? Unexpectedly, there's a little dragon that dares to compete with the big dragon. What's going on? Such a situation has never happened in Dragon Sealing City before. Unexpectedly, a little dragon does not fear the king dragon at all. In the ring-shaped mountain range, among the towering peaks, the calm cultivators on the towers all had panicked expressions at this moment. That's impossible. It is impossible for such a situation to happen. The king dragon is a true dragon. How could the other little dragons dare to compete with it at this moment? A Sima clan elder shouted. Sima Lingxian was the hope of their Sima clan to become the #1 noble clan in the world. They had to obtain great luck in this great age. The Sima clan could not allow any accidents to happen. At this moment, they were the most nervous. Just as everyone was exclaiming that this was impossible, a rather old man snorted coldly. What is impossible about it? Naturally, it is a true dragon that can compete with a great dragon. It is just two dragons fighting. In the past, Dragon Sealing City has seen the magnificent feat of 9 dragons competing with each other. Chapter 565. Someone recognized Xinyuan Zhantian and said, "That is the Eastern Sea's little dragon king, Xinyuan Zhantian, the top genius of the boundless sea." Indeed, a true dragon can shine wherever it goes. Even in the Tianwu continent, its sharpness is still unstoppable. When faced with Xinyuan Zhantian's mockery, Xinyuan Zhantian quickly recovered his calm. His strong self-confidence did not put any pressure on him. He was just slightly surprised. Xinyuan Zhantian, I have heard of your great name for a long time. You truly live up to your reputation as the Eastern Sea's little dragon king. However, there can only be one true dragon in this great era. I will personally slay the dragon in the arena battles. Xinyuan Zhantian withdrew his aura and laughed loudly. I'm afraid that you will fail to slay the dragon and end up in the dragon's belly. You'd better not meet me. Otherwise, your strong self-confidence will fall to rock bottom, never to rise again. Boom! Just as the two faced each other, their gazes locked in an intense clash in the air. The two true dragons tore through the thick dark clouds at the same time. Then, golden pillars of light descended. Xiao! The stone pillars returned to the ground and landed in Dragon Sealing City. Roar! 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 Only at this moment did the frozen stone dragons come alive. The 10-odd little dragons that had been suppressed for a long time soared into the sky and roared loudly, venting the frustrations in their hearts. The scene of the dragons soaring into the sky was very majestic. This was especially so when the 10-odd golden pillars of light landed at the same time. It was an eye-opener for everyone. After that, golden dragons soared and tore through the clouds at nearly every moment. However, Xiao Chun, who was on the roof, lost the patience to continue watching. While he watched the fight for the dragon pillars, he also casually looked around the city. Dragon Sealing City was the only intact ancient city in the world. There were still many unique buildings from the ancient era in the city, which was an eye-opener. After 7 or 8 minutes, 2 figures flew over. It was a receptionist who led Lu Suifeng over. Based on his dispirited expression, he should have failed the challenge. I failed. There are too many geniuses. Only after coming here did I realize that I am nothing. Lu Suifeng sighed as he shook his head at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, "Don't be discouraged. Just watch this competition carefully. If you put your heart into it, you should have no problem advancing to Martial Monarch." Lu Suifeng nodded with a serious expression. He said, "Definitely. With a great age before us, I do not wish to stop here." After another 7 or 8 minutes, Mu Chun and Zhang Lai also arrived. As expected, both of them failed. However, the two of them were very open-minded. They had originally intended to broaden their horizons and did not hold much hope. The 4 of them gathered together and did not seem bored. They began to casually chat about some things. Mu Chun glanced at Xiao Chun and said, "Before I came down, I took a look at Brother Morong's situation. He's very ambitious and wants to directly obtain the right to become a seated participant. Until now, there has been no result. Xiao Chan smiled faintly and said, with his strength, it is a little difficult for him to compete for the seated spot. However, it should not be difficult for him to qualify. Have you seen Senior Sister Yin? How is her situation? I'm here. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, melodious laughter rang out in everyone's ears. Yin Kursin wore a light-colored floral dress and walked over with a smile on her face. Based on the smile on Yin Kursin's face, it was very different from the others. Without even guessing, it was clear whether she qualified or not. Did you pass? Lu Suifeng and the others asked. Yin Kursin nodded gently and smiled. I was lucky to qualify. 3 days later, I will be able to fight in the Wind Cloud Arena. Mu Chun and the others revealed envious expressions. However, they were all from their own sect, so there was no need to be jealous. They all cupped their hands and congratulated Yin Kursin. After chatting for a while, Lu Suifeng suddenly said, Murong Chong lost. Everyone looked up and saw that the fight for the remaining 9 seeded participants had reached its most intense stage. The one who defeated Murong Chong was the scion of the Qian clan, one of the 8 noble clans, Qianwen. Of course, it was not a true defeat. The fight for the seated spot was not to the point where one side had to die. The Qin clan's trump cards and killing moves would not be revealed so early. They could only retreat in the face of difficulty. However, not long after, Murong Chong obtained the rights to another dragon pillar. It was as Xiao Chun said. He easily qualified for the arena battles. Resonant dragon roars resounded endlessly. Many golden dragons soared into the sky, filling the sky with golden light. For thousands of years, Dragon Sealing City had been dark. Today it was dazzling everyone's eyes. As time slowly went by, the first stage of the 5-Nation Youth Competition's preliminaries came to an end. After some intense competition, the 400 elite spots were finally decided. 3 days later, the arena battles would begin. Then, the exciting show of the 5-Nation Youth Competition would officially begin. When the thick, dark clouds above retracted, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion elders finally arrived at the courtyard under Jiang Qi's lead. Xiao Chun and the others on the roof jumped down as well. Jiang Qi swept his gaze across the somewhat wretched courtyard. He sighed softly and said, It has been hard on you all. Staying in this broken-down place is because our Heavenly Saber Pavilion has declined too much in the past few years. The courtyard was indeed very simple. Even if the group of 10-odd people split it evenly, each person would get a room. There was not even a private backyard. It would be very inconvenient to cultivate at night. Of course, this was the rule of Dragon Sealing City. It was not fair or unfair. If you were strong, you would naturally get a luxurious courtyard. The courtyards of the 8 noble clans and 10 great sects, the rich and powerful families of the 5-Nation Youth Competition, were much more spacious and luxurious. Not only did everyone get a small courtyard, but there were also special cultivation rooms left behind from the ancient era for the participants to make their final preparations. Murong Chong said sullenly, It will be fine after this 5-Nation Youth Competition. The later generations of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will not be like us again. Shaman Jun smiled and said, Let's not talk about this first. There are many special cultivation places in Dragon Sealing City. Our sect will pay for your expenses there. Jiang Qi walked forward and gave each of the 3 people who had qualified to take the test a spatial ring. As for the others who had not, they all received a wooden box. Xiao Chun checked with his spiritual sense and was mildly astonished. There were quite a lot of medial grade spirit stones in the spatial rings, a total of 400,000. With the 3 of them combined, there were more than 1 million medial grade spirit stones. It looked like the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had put in a lot of money for this 5-Nation Youth Competition. Jiang Qi's expression did not show any signs of heartache. The fact that 3 people qualified for the next round had already greatly exceeded his expectations. In the entire continent, only 400 people qualified. It was not easy for the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to get 3 spots. Even their old rival, the Misty Sword sect, only got 2 spots. The Night Spirit Palace was even worse. Only Mu Qingxue barely qualified. As for the other noble clans of the Great Qin nation, aside from the Duanyuking, none of them qualified. Jiang Qi smiled faintly and said, "Go and rest first. If you have time tomorrow, you can stroll around Dragon Sealing City. There are many interesting things in the city." High in the sky, thick clouds covered the entire Dragon Sealing City. As a result, night came very early. After 4 hours, the sky turned completely dark. Xiao Chun gently pushed open the door to his room and leaped up. Then, he flew towards the ring-shaped mountain range. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense and discovered many other cultivators with the same goal as him. The competition was about to start. Naturally, he had to organize the martial techniques he learned. He could not slack off. After finding a desolate mountain peak, Xiao Chun paused for a while in midair. Then, he quickly landed in a rather flat forest. The cold night wind blew, but Xiao Chun, who was wearing only a thin layer of clothing, did not feel too cold. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chun calmed down completely. Then, he placed his right hand on his saber hilt and drew it. A surging saber intent immediately surged out and spread out in the forest. Countless whirlwinds blew, picking up large amounts of fallen leaves and making them hum. Xiao Chen's saber intent slowly rose. Soon, it reached the might of small perfection. Then, it continued to grow stronger. The 40% comprehended saber intent stretched the whirlwinds into a long straight line. The fallen leaves in the line spun rapidly like sharp blades, kicking up a cloud of dust. The leaves looked like they could not hold on any longer. They looked like they would explode at any moment. However, they did not explode in the end. This showed that Xiao Chun had perfect control over them. The 50% comprehended saber intent caused a strong wind to blow. Tiny cracks appeared on the fallen leaves. The 60% comprehended saber intent caused the leaves in the forest to explode. The ferocious saber intent turned into a saber wind and swept through the forest. Kassier, Kassier. The trees broke. When the saber wind was over, all the trees in the forest had been cut in half. If others saw this scene, they would be greatly astonished. Bai Chi's peak small perfection saber intent was already sufficient for him to stand out from the crowd. However, the saber intent that Xiao Chun displayed was 60% comprehended. He was just one step short of great perfection. However, Xiao Chun did not get too excited about the situation in the forest. He remained extremely calm. If he forcibly raised his saber intent, Xiao Chun would be able to raise it to 60% comprehended as well. That would be no weaker than Sima Lingxuan's. However, it would be very difficult for him to control it as he pleased. It looked like he was just one step short of being able to control it as he pleased, and his saber intent would reach great perfection. However, this step was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Xiao Chun said softly, "My saber intent can only be considered to have reached 40% comprehended. However, if I really meet Sima Lingxian, I can still go all out. There is no need to fear him." Sima Lingxian had heaven-defying self-confidence. Although he, Xiao Chun, was low-key, he did not show any signs of weakness. No matter how overwhelming your aura is or how confident you are, I do not fear you. I will defeat you. Xiao Chun slowly moved through the forest. He executed the martial techniques that he knew, the Wukuei saber technique, the lightning tribulation saber technique, and the strongest four-season saber technique. One by one, a strong aura spread through the forest. Explosions resounded without end. By the time Xiao Chun sheathed his saber, the flat mountaintop was riddled with holes. Chapter 566. There were countless deep pits of various sizes. The originally lush forest no longer existed. Furthermore, this was because Xiao Chun was able to restrain himself. If he had not done so, half the mountain would have been chopped off. Ao Jiao, with the current strength of my body, can I barely execute Return of the Blue Dragon? Xiao Chun asked in his heart. Xiao Chun had experienced the might of a heaven-ranked martial technique. Back then, when he was a martial disciple, he was able to jump realms and kill a martial grandmaster. This was the best proof. Now that the Five Nation Youth Competition was filled with experts, everyone had their own trump cards. If he could execute Return of the Blue Dragon, it would undoubtedly increase Xiao Chen's confidence. When the sky brightened, Xiao Chen returned to Dragon Sealing City in an excited mood. Boundless fatigue washed over him, and he fell asleep without doing anything. After some time, he vaguely heard knocking on the door and someone calling out to him, "Senior brother." His good habits allowed Xiao Chun to wake up quickly. Xiao Chun circulated his energy, and his fatigue was swept away. When he woke up, he felt very refreshed. When he looked up, he discovered mottled sunlight shining in through the cracks in the door. He had slept until noon. He quickly got up and opened the door. Yin Kursin, Lu Suifeng, Mu Chun, Zhang Lai, and Murong Chong were all waiting for him outside. Unexpectedly, junior brother Xiao has the habit of sleeping in. "It is already noon, and you are still sleeping," Yin Kursin said with a somewhat mischievous smile. Xiao Chan felt somewhat embarrassed. Something had happened the night before, causing him to exhaust both his mind and body. Normally, he would not have slept so soundly. "Why are you looking for me?" Lu Suifeng smiled and said, "Senior Sister Yin, let's go." There are many historical sites and buildings from the ancient era in Dragon Sealing City. Let's take a look around. Before the Tianwu dynasty was established, Dragon Sealing City already existed. Normally, Dragon Sealing City was not open to the public. Outsiders would not be able to see its glory. Only during the Five-Nation Youth Competition would it open to welcome guests. Cultivators from all over the world would pour in, making this normally empty city extraordinarily bustling. Even the unsociable Murong Chong was prepared to go with them. One could imagine the charm of Dragon Sealing City. Xiao Chan was also a little tempted. He smiled and said, "Wait for me. I'll be done after I wash up." After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Xiao Chen followed everyone out of the courtyard and walked through the streets and alleys of Dragon Sealing City. Yesterday, when Xiao Chen landed first, there was not a single person in the huge Dragon Sealing City. However, at this moment, it was packed with people. There were cultivators from various countries everywhere. Many peddlers seemed as if they'd emerged from the ground, and they covered the streets and alleys like taverns, tea houses, inns, and stalls. There was everything that one could think of, and everything seemed to be bustling and flourishing like a piece of brocade. Lu Suifeng smiled and said, "Unexpectedly, there are so many people. Dragon Sealing City is larger than our Shiha city. If it is completely filled, there will be more than 2 million people." Yin Kursin nodded and said, "That is normal. Just think about the influence of the Five-Nation Youth Competition. That is a grand event of the entire continent. Furthermore, with the charm of Dragon Sealing City, it would not be strange for 3 million people to come." The group walked around the city, taking in the sights. Several historical sites from tens of thousands of years ago could be seen everywhere in Dragon Sealing City. With one look, one could tell that the ancient aura they exuded was not fake. Several of these historical sites were so amazing that they lingered on for so long that they forgot to return. There were even some cultivators who suddenly comprehended something before these ancient objects, breaking through a bottleneck that they had not been able to overcome for many years. As the group walked, they arrived before a wall filled with deep marks. This place was very popular. A large number of cultivators gathered here. It was unknown what material this wall was made of. It was pitch black and gave off a deep glow. It was 100 meters tall. This is the Coiling Dragon Wall. The wall itself is a meteorite from outer space. When it fell, it became like this. The marks on the wall were left by some ancient martial sages. There are spear marks, sword marks, saber marks, palm marks, and fist marks. Only an expert with true dragon chi can leave marks on this wall. This Coiling Dragon Wall is not simple. The owner of the wall was a rich-looking merchant. He was currently introducing the wall to the crowd with a smile on his face. "If any of you can touch this Coiling Dragon Wall and last 10 seconds, I will immediately give you 100,000 medial grade spirit stones. The longer you last, the more I will give. For every 10 seconds you last twice as long, I will give you double the amount of spirit stones. All you need is 10,000 medial grade spirit stones to test it out." There is a huge horizontal line on the ground, blocking the many spectating bladesmen 500 meters away. They can only watch from afar. Is that true? As long as one can touch the wall for 10 seconds, they will give 100,000 medial grade spirit stones? That must be a lie. How can there be such an easy thing in the world? Several cultivators were tempted. They could get 100,000 medial grade spirit stones just by touching the wall. No matter how they thought about it, it was very simple. The rich-looking merchant smiled and said, "I guarantee it is real. I am an administrator of the Wanlong Merchant Association. I do have that much credibility." The Wanlong Merchant Association is the top merchant association in the Great G Nation. It is also the top merchant association in the world. It should be real. Let me give it a try. A medial grade Martial King Bladesman tossed down 10,000 medial grade spirit stones and strode across the horizontal line, heading for the pitch-black wall. Bang! Before that cultivator could walk 100 meters, his expression turned extremely unsightly. After taking a few more steps, he vomited a mouthful of blood and flew back. Such a mysterious phenomenon immediately shocked the others, making them feel astonished. This caused the hearts of the cultivators who were eager to give it a try to turn cold. They were no longer in a rush to make a decision. However, human curiosity was the most stubborn. The stranger something was, the more people wanted to know the answer. They wanted to test it out for themselves. Furthermore, there was the temptation of the large sum of medial grade spirit stones. After a while, a few more people handed over their spirit stones and walked over. In the end, without exception, no one could get within 100 meters of the wall. They were all knocked back by a strange force. Their faces were filled with horror. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the administrator of the Wanlong Merchant Association had received more than 2 million medial grade spirit stones. The smile on his face became even wider. Is there any other friend who wants to give a try? This is a 1 to 10 compensation deal. It is definitely worth it. Lu Suifeng felt it was strange. He asked, "Xiao Chun, what's going on? Not to mention touching the wall, we can't even get within 100 meters." Xiao Chun muttered to himself for a while before replying, "The problem should be with those deep scars. I'm afraid that what that person said was true. They are indeed scars left by ancient martial sages. The will on the scars has not dissipated yet. Bladesmen have to face the saber intent of ancient saber sages. Swordsmen have to face the sword intent of ancient sword sages. Fist and leg practitioners have to face the aura of their respective sages. Let me give it a try." As Murong Chong spoke, he stepped forward and tossed down 10,000 medial grade spirit stones. Then, he crossed the horizontal line and headed for the coiling dragon wall. Murong Chong walked the first 200 meters with a relaxed expression. Then, his expression started to turn unsightly. After he walked another 100 meters, he frowned deeply. Murong Chong did not stop and continued forward. After he walked another 100 meters, he stopped when he was only 100 meters away from the demon wall. 100 meters was a hurdle. No one had crossed it yet. When the crowd saw Murong Chong stop 100 meters away, they could not help but feel nervous. Murong Chong took a deep breath and placed his right hand on his saber hilt. Then, he strode forward, leaving a deep footprint on ground. He had succeeded. He succeeded. This person has walked 100 meters. He is truly worthy of being a genius qualified for the arena battles, someone said softly when he saw the dragon-shaped jade pendant at Murong Chong's waist. I wonder if he can continue walking. After that, every step Murong Chong took was very difficult. Sweat covered his forehead as he inched closer to the coiling dragon wall. No one knew what kind of pressure Murong Chong was facing. The footprints he left on the ground became deeper and deeper. There are only 10 steps left. If I take another 10 steps, I will be able to touch that coiling dragon wall. Although it was very difficult, Murong Chong did not stop. The distance between him and the coiling dragon wall continued to shrink. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. "Pa!" Murong Chong suddenly shouted and took a big step forward. Finally, he arrived at the foot of the coiling dragon wall and sent a palm strike at it. Boom! However, Murong Chong only made contact with it for a second before he was knocked back by a formless energy. He vomited a large mouthful of blood, and his complexion turned incredibly pale. Lu Suifeng and the others quickly rushed forward and helped him up. Murong Chong muttered, "The saber intent of an ancient martial sage is indeed horrifying." Although Murong Chong was knocked back in a sorry state, no one mocked him for being weak. After all, no one had even managed to get within 100 meters of the wall. For Murong Chong to be able to walk up and touch that wall already proved that he was very strong. Following that, several more people stepped forward to try. Among them, there were a few who qualified for the arena battles. However, they could only get within 10 meters of the wall at most. They could not even touch the coiling dragon wall. The strange coiling dragon wall and the mysterious ancient martial sage caused more and more people to gather here. However, there were too many failures. No one dared to try it again. Interesting. I heard that the Wanlong Merchant Association dug up a mysterious rock from beyond the heavens. Unexpectedly, I found it here. Let me give it a try. A cold voice resounded. A blue-robed swordsman slowly walked over, parting the crowd. It's the drifting snow sword sex, Lu Xiaoyan. He was ranked 9th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Unexpectedly, such a person is here to join in the fun. The drifting snow sword sex, Lu Xiaoyan. Xiao Chun had some impression of him. Back at the summit, he had seen Lu Xiaoyan's strong state of ice. Xiao Chun had heard that Lu Xiaoyan had obtained the qualifications to be a seated participant. Lu Xiaoyan held a simple and unadorned sword in his hand as he arrived before the line. When he saw the coiling dragon wall covered in all sorts of saber marks, sword marks, and fist marks, he revealed a disdainful smile. "You have already been dead for tens of thousands of years. Who are you trying to scare?" "Pooh!" Lu Xiaoyan pushed off the ground and took a step forward. Then, he took another step forward and moved another 200 meters. In the blink of an eye, he had advanced 300 meters. The surrounding cultivators all cried out in surprise. They were all astonished by Lu Xiaoyan's strength. After Lu Xiaoyan steadied himself, his expression turned cautious. The sharp wills carved on the coiling dragon wall continuously attacked his soul and mind. Chapter 567. It was like Lu Xiaoyan had entered an illusion. With every step he took, he had to face several sword intents flying at him. He had to shatter them one by one before he could advance. However, Lu Xiaoyan's footsteps did not stop at all. He did not leave deep footprints on the ground like Murong Chong either. He appeared to be rather relaxed. When Lu Xiaoyan got close, he immediately sent a palm strike. Then, he closed his eyes and sensed it. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 10 seconds passed in an instant. Lu Xiaoyan was still fine. Someone finally passed. I thought that no one could last 10 seconds on this wall. Lu Xiaoyan is pretty strong. It looks like he will not have any problems getting into the top 10 this time. As the crowd discussed this, another 10 seconds passed. The surrounding temperature plummeted. They could clearly see that Lu Xiaoyan's thin clothes were covered in frost. Lu Xiaoyan's aura also soared. Although he had not moved at all, it was like he was going through a life and death battle. His aura rose continuously. 30 seconds passed, and Lu Xiaoyan did not move. His palm continued to touch the mysterious coiling dragon wall. 40 seconds passed. 50 seconds passed. Lu Xiaoyan still did not move. However, his clothes had already turned into ice. The tall coiling dragon wall was also covered in frost. The surrounding temperature dropped even more terrifyingly. Everyone had to circulate their essence to resist it. What exactly is on that wall? Lu Xiaoyan actually brought out his full state of ice. I can't hold on for much longer. Indeed, it is very cold. Very cold. This won't do. I have to move back a little. Lu Xiaoyan's state of ice was extremely strange. Initially, no one felt that there was anything special about it. However, as it accumulated, everyone felt like the blood in their bones froze. They had no choice but to move back. Although it was clearly very cold, that wealthy merchant's forehead was covered in sweat. 50 seconds had passed. That meant that he had to pay Lu Xiaoyan 500,000 medial great spirit stones. That was a third of the spirit stones he earned. He could not help but feel the pinch. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and carefully sensed the flowing cold qi in his body. That cold chi was formless and formless. The moment it entered his body, it merged with his blood. Strange. This is the first time I have encountered such a state of ice, Xiao Chun thought to himself. Penetrating his spiritual sense into the blood, Xiao Chun carefully examined it for a long time before he finally found the faintly discernible ice chi. After spending a lot of effort, the lightning-attributed essence chi in his body finally dissipated the cold chi. Bang! After 60 seconds, Lu Xiaoyan finally could not endure any longer. The ice on his body exploded. Lu Xiaoyan was not knocked back like the others. He did not move at all as he said indifferently. The ancient sages are indeed capable. With a light tap of his foot, Zhang Xian flew out. The state of ice in the air dissipated, and everyone surrounded the coiling dragon wall again. They saw the ice on the coiling dragon wall turn into steam and rise up. The hazy mist made the coiling dragon wall seem even more mysterious. When the wealthy merchant saw Lu Xiaoyan leave, he smiled faintly and heaved a sigh of relief. 600,000 medial grade spirit stones were probably nothing to Lu Xiaoyan. Remember to find time to send the 600,000 medial grade spirit stones back to the drifting snow sword sect. Consider it my contribution to the sect. Before the wealthy merchant's smile faded, a clear voice came from afar, making him feel depressed. The strange coiling dragon wall, the many failed cultivators, Lu Xiaoyan, who managed to stand for 60 seconds, and all sorts of strange things caused the matter of the coiling dragon wall to spread quickly in Dragon Sealing City. More and more cultivators gathered. Several famous demonic geniuses came to take the test out of interest. This coiling dragon wall was like a testing stone to test the strength of cultivators. Some people lasted for a long time, some only for a short time, and some could not even get close. From a certain point of view, this indirectly showed the difference in strength between the various cultivators. Qian, one of the 8 noble clans, is here as well. He also lasted for a minute. Nangong Ziyu of the Nangong clan is here as well. She lasted for 50 seconds. The Supreme Isek's personal disciple, Gong Yongyu, lasted for 40 seconds. Many people from the 10 great sects and 8 noble clans came. This increased the fame of the coiling dragon wall significantly. However, very few people could last for a minute. Sima Lingxian did not come. Of the heirs of the 8 noble clans, only the Qian clan's Qian one lasted for a minute. The others only lasted for 40 to 50 seconds. Murong Chong looked at Qian one with a somewhat gloomy gaze. It looked like when Qian one fought with him yesterday, he had not even used half his strength. Yun Kursen smiled and said, "Junior brother Xiao Chun, why don't you give it a try as well?" Xiao Chun had been tempted long ago. Furthermore, he did not lack 10,000 medial grade spirit stones. After paying the entrance fee, Xiao Chun stood in front of the line. He looked at the coiling dragon wall 500 meters in front and smiled faintly. Kassier. Xiao Chun drew the lunar shadow saber at lightning speed. A sharp saber intent spread out and flew towards the coiling dragon wall. Dang, dang, dang. Something strange happened. The spinning lunar shadow saber in midair seemed to meet with a divine weapon. It clashed with the divine weapon and resounded with metallic clangs. Xiao Chen's figure flashed. His feet did not touch the ground. He followed the dancing saber and quickly flew towards the coiling dragon wall. The saber's edge spread out and chopped down all the auras in the way. Xiao Chen flew through the air unobstructed and landed directly below the coiling dragon wall. Kassier. Xiao Chun sheathed his saber with a Kassier sound. Then, he took a deep breath and sent a palm strike at this mysterious coiling dragon wall. In that instant, there were flashes of figures. Xiao Chun looked around, and the scenery around him changed. He discovered that he was in a desolate savanna. There were figures flashing in the air. These people all held sabers in their hands. A strong saber intent spread out on the savanna, kicking up a strong wind. An illusory figure appeared in front. After a few flashes, he turned solid. He held a large saber and attacked Xiao Chun without saying a word. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and placed his right hand on the saber hilt. He said softly, Let me see how strong you ancient martial sages are after tens of thousands of years. A strong wind blew, and saber intent swept out. The grass bent over. When Xiao Chun looked around, all the tall grass on the boundless savanna bent over and prostrated themselves on the ground. That mysterious bladesman fought with Xiao Chun. After 100 moves, his aura became unstable. Xiao Chun caught hold of an opening and chopped it apart. Following that, another bladesman jumped out. This continued until Xiao Chun killed 10 bladesmen. Then, he fell to the last bladesman. When Xiao Chun's consciousness returned to the real world, he had already let go of the coiling dragon wall. He looked at the hourglass beside him. It turned out that he had already lasted for 2 minutes. After receiving the 1,200,000 medial grade spirit stones from the wealthy merchant, Xiao Chun returned to the crowd. He said to Yin Kursin, "Let's go. There is nothing more to see here." How powerful! He actually lasted for 2 minutes. Who is this person? Why have I never heard of him before? Could he be even more powerful than Lu Xiaoyan? The surrounding cultivators were all astonished. They all started to guess Xiao Chen's identity. Bai Qi, who had arrived at some point in time, looked at Xiao Chen's back. He muttered, "What a strong saber intent. This person can fight me." After Bai Qi withdrew his gaze, he casually tested himself as well. His result was also 2 minutes. He was much stronger than the other disciples of the 8 noble clans. When the sun set, most of the cultivators on the coiling dragon wall had left. It was no longer as bustling as it was during the day. However, the arrival of a person caused the wealthy merchant, who was preparing to pack up his stall, to twitch slightly. He said somewhat forcefully, "Does young Master Sima want to try as well?" Sima Lingxian revealed a faint smile on his handsome face. "Come and join in the excitement. Let's see how long I can last." "Pa!" Sima Lingxian did not make any movements. His figure flashed, and he arrived before the coiling dragon wall. Then, he pressed his palm against it. After a long time, Sima Lingxian released his palm and looked at the hourglass beside him. He had lasted for 5 minutes. A strong self-confidence spread out from Sima Lingxian's heart. He smiled gently and did not ask for the spirit stones. Instead, he left. 2 days later, night fell, and Dragon Sealing City was shrouded in darkness. In the courtyard belonging to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Jiangqi and the other elders gathered Xiao Chun, Yun Kursin, and Murong Chong. The arena battles will officially begin tomorrow. The 400 people will be split into 20 groups. There will be 2 rounds of elimination. Each round will eliminate half of the people. The rules for advancing to the next round are based on points. In each round of elimination, the participants will have to fight 20 matches. A win will give you 2 points, a loss will give you 2 points, and a draw will give you 1 point. After that, the bottom 10 people in each group will be eliminated. Jiangqi gave the 3 a detailed introduction of the rules and system of the competition. After the 2 rounds of elimination, the remaining top 100 will have a ranking battle. Only the top 50 will obtain luck. When the 3 heard Jiangqi's explanation of the rules, they all had different expressions. Yin Kursin appeared rather casual. Although she cultivated a heaven-ranked cultivation technique, her talent was limited. It was difficult for her to bring out the full advantage of a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Furthermore, she had not cultivated it for long. Right now, she was only a superior grade martial king and had not broken through to half-step martial monarch. If she was lucky, she might be able to make it through 2 rounds of elimination. However, she would not have any chance of entering the top 50 to obtain luck. Yin Kursin understood this principle as well. Hence, she was very open-minded and did not mind it too much. Murong Chang's expression was rather grave. He was a small perfection half-step martial monarch, someone who was neither strong nor weak. Originally, Murong Chang was very confident in his own strength. Even if he was weaker than Xiao Chun, it would be easy for him to make it into the top 50. However, after Murong Chang arrived at Dragon Sealing City, he discovered that his vision was too narrow. When he was trying to become a seated participant, he was forced back by Qian in 5 moves. He could not even last 10 seconds on the coiling dragon wall. All this gave Murong Chong a clear understanding of his own strength. With his strength, it should not be a problem for him to make it through 2 rounds of elimination. Of course, that did not include getting severely injured the moment he entered the arena. Chapter 568. However, if he wanted to fight for the top 50, he only had a 50% chance of doing so. He would need to be lucky. As for fighting for the top 20, don't even think about it. Because of this, he was under a lot of pressure. This was also a time to test his mental state. If one's mental state was high, it would not affect the display of strength. In fact, it could even turn pressure into motivation. If a flaw appeared in one's mental state, one's strength would decrease sharply, and one might not even be able to pass the elimination round. Xiao Chun, on the other hand, was relatively indifferent. He was determined and had only one goal, which was to continuously defeat all his opponents. Whether it was an elimination match or a ranking match, all he wanted was to go all out in every battle and defeat his opponent. He immediately asked, "Are the rules for the ranking battles out yet? Will it be the same as the knockout rounds and be carried out in groups?" Jiang Qi shook his head and said, "The rules of the ranking battles are different every year. When the time comes, there will be a last-minute notice. The main reason is to prevent the sects from finding out in advance and using some loopholes. Something like this has happened in the past, and the impact is not good. So in the future, the rules will be announced at the last minute after the elimination round." After that, Jiang Qi explained some other rules. For example, if an opponent admitted defeat in the arena, they had to immediately stop attacking. If Sima Lingxian continued to attack, he would be disqualified from the competition. It was the same for any sect or noble clan. Sima Lingxian was no exception. Also, in the ring, no offensive artifacts could be used, while auxiliary and defensive artifacts could only be worn up to 3 at most, and their grades could not be higher than intermediate. The resources of the large sects and the small sects were completely different. If they were willing, every participant could find a way to obtain a full set of peak mid-grade secret treasures. Completely relying on their secret treasures, they could crush the contestants from the small sections. The organizers would naturally not allow such a thing to happen. As for soul weapons, there were no restrictions. After all, a weapon would develop feelings after being used for a long time. If a swordsman or a bladesman suddenly changed their weapon, their strength would decrease by more than 30%. In the end, Jiang Qi smiled and said, "Man disposes, God disposes. Just do your best. Don't put too much pressure on yourselves. I'm already very satisfied with your current results." After the sky brightened, Jiang Qi and the others led the Heavenly Saber Pavilions group to the Wind Cloud Arena in the city. The Wind Cloud platform was located in the center of the city. It was surrounded by a huge ring-shaped spectator stand. Many spectators were already seated there. From the outside to the inside, the audience stands were arranged in order of height to ensure that everyone could see what was going on in the arena. Damn, I'm late. The competition hasn't even started, and there's not a single seat left. I slept too much. I really shouldn't have slept in at this time. I'm going to miss the first day of the competition. How depressing. Accept your fate. I heard that the people inside have been waiting since midnight. They've been waiting for 6 to 8 hours. How unfortunate. This 5-nation youth competition is probably the most exciting one in the past few years. To think that we can't see it. At the entrance, several cultivators who were late sighed in regret. Their expressions were very dispirited. Xiao Chun and the others, on the other hand, didn't have to worry. They had their own designated seats for contestants, and people from the sect could enter directly. They didn't even need to buy tickets. After showing their IDs, a receptionist immediately led Xiao Chun and the others to their seats. After the group sat down, they started to size up the Wind Cloud platform in the center. It was a rectangular stone platform that was as smooth as a mirror. It took up several thousand hectares of land. It was very large. There was no wind or lightning. Aside from the Wind Cloud platform being smooth, there was nothing special about it. Lu Suifeng said, with some disappointment, "This is the Wind Cloud platform? It is too inferior. Furthermore, it is just a flat platform. How are 400 people going to compete?" Hu Qi. Boom. Right after Lu Suifeng spoke, A strong wind blew in the platform. Thunder roared endlessly, and wind and thunder roared. It was like a vast army passing by. The atmosphere of the platform suddenly changed. The huge wind cloud platform slowly rose. After it reached a height of 10 meters, it was divided into 20 dueling rings. There was a small dragon pillar in each of the 4 corners of the dueling ring. When the dragons opened their mouths, they spat out 2 beams of light, purple and white. The beams of light connected and formed a thick barrier of light, protecting the dueling ring. Electricity flickered in the barrier of light. There was also wind and lightning moving around. This was a barrier made up of wind and lightning spiritual energy. Yin Kursen looked at Lu Suifeng and smiled. "You don't dare to spout nonsense anymore, right?" Lu Suifeng smiled embarrassedly and said, "I don't dare anymore. I just finished speaking and you slapped me in the face." Jiang Qi explained, "That wind cloud barrier contains dragon qi. Under martial monarch, no one can break it without using quintessence. The 20 dueling rings correspond to the 20 groups. After you're split into groups, you can see which dueling ring you are in. We will be splitting into groups soon. Everyone, please make your final preparations. After we split into groups, the first elimination round will officially begin." The organizer of the competition, Dragon Sealing City's City Lord, Feng Shou, spoke loudly. He infused quintessence into his voice. Everyone in the large plaza could hear him clearly. Xiaochen closed his eyes and rested, not thinking about anything else. Suddenly, he felt an extremely unfriendly gaze. There was even a faint murderous intent in that gaze. Xiaochen opened his eyes and looked in the direction of that gaze. He saw Xie Zuan, who was in the Evil Moon Pavilion's seats, looking at him with a malevolent expression. Xiaochen immediately lost interest. He could not be bothered with this person. However, he kept an eye on Baijian, who was resting beside Xie Zuan. Seeing that Xiaochen did not care about him at all, Xie Zuan trembled in anger. He clenched his teeth and said, "Damn it, I'll let you be cocky for now." The people from the city lord's residence arrived before Xiaochen. After they asked who Xiaochen was, they handed him a wooden token. The wooden token had the words Group 6 written on it. Xiaochen's name and number were carved on the back. "Xiaochen, which group are you in?" "I am in Group 3, Yin Kursen asked after she looked at her own token. "Group 6. Group 7. Murong Chong also reported his own group. In the Evil Moon Pavilion seats, Xie Ziwen looked at his own token. The words Group 6 were carved on it. He asked Baijian, "Senior brother, which group are you in?" Baijian's expression was very calm. He said indifferently, "I am in Group 13. You are in the same group as Xiao Chun." Xie Ziwen's expression changed. He had not expected to meet Xiao Chun so soon. He asked, "Are you for real?" Baijian mocked, "What's wrong? Are you afraid?" "No, I'm a little nervous. However, you will meet him in the 20 rounds sooner or later. You're not a match for him. When you meet him, just try to figure him out. Don't think about taking revenge. That will only cause you to lose even more miserably." Baijian ignored Xie Ziwen's words and spoke to himself. Xie Ziwen was not happy in his heart. However, the other party was his senior brother, so he did not dare to talk back. He could only say, "I will listen to senior brother." However, Xie Ziwen thought to himself, "I don't believe that after cultivating bitterly for more than a year, I am still not a match for him." His victory back then was just a fluke. Chapter 569. Xiao Chun took a look and discovered that the referee had already walked over to the dueling ring corresponding to Group 6. The referee was an old man with a deep cultivation and a lingering aura. Even with Xiao Chen's cultivation, he could not see through him. The old man was at least a medial grade martial monarch. He was definitely not an ordinary inferior grade martial monarch. With such cultivation, he could easily control the situation. 20 dueling rings meant 20 medial grade martial monarchs. With such strength, the Dragon Sealing City's City Lord's residence was probably stronger than some of the super sections. However, Dragon Sealing City was usually closed. The City Lord's residence would not interfere with the conflicts of the continent's factions. For tens of thousands of years, Dragon Sealing City had maintained an absolute neutrality. Hence, the other factions would not suspect them. Soon, the duels began. Group 6 sent out 2 contestants. One used a saber and the other a sword. They were both peak medial grade martial kings. For these two to stand out from the tens of thousands of geniuses of the continent, they clearly did not cultivate trash cultivation techniques or martial techniques. Their fights were spectacular. Most people would find it interesting and would not find it boring. Of course, in Xiao Chen's eyes, this was rather boring. The two of them were 2 levels lower than him. Furthermore, their techniques did not give him a shocking feeling. After 200 moves, the cultivator using the sword knocked away his opponent's saber and placed his weapon on his opponent's neck. The victor is decided. Contestant 1 wins. You gain 2 points, the referee of Group 6 said calmly. After that, contestants 3 and 4 went up. This time, one was a peak superior grade martial king, and the other had just advanced to superior grade martial king. The difference in cultivation was rather large. There was not much suspense in this match. After 50 moves, the contestant with the higher cultivation defeated contestant 4. Next match, contestant 5, Xiezuan, versus contestant 6, Zongliang. Xiao Chun was somewhat surprised. He had not expected to meet Xiezuan so soon. However, the two of them were no longer on the same level. There was no need to pay too much attention to him. Xiezuan smiled coldly and leaped up, flying towards the dueling ring. The referee of Group 7 pointed, and a crack appeared in the wind cloud barrier, allowing Xiezuan to land. Zongliang cupped his hands and said, Xia Country's 7-fist sect Zongliang, please advise me. Xiezuan said disdainfully, 7-fist sect? What small sect is this? I have never heard of it before. Cut the crap and begin. Receive my palm strike first. 1,000 flaming palm, Xiezuan shouted and pushed his right hand forward. The fire-attributed spiritual energy in the air immediately surged, and thousands of flaming palms appeared out of nowhere. Next, it rapidly transformed into a giant flaming palm, which smashed down fiercely at Zongliang. The lines on the flaming palm were clear, as if they were tangible and possessed astonishing might. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He said softly, there is progress. He is now half as strong as Baijian was half a year ago. Back in the ancient desolate land, Xiezuan needed a long time to store up power before he could use this huge flaming palm. Furthermore, he had used it as an ultimate move against Xiao Chun. Now, he could use it as an ordinary move, and he could even condense it so quickly. In the past year or so, Xiezuan had improved considerably. Zongliang's expression was solemn. He knew that his opponent would not be easy to deal with. He put his palms together, forming a protective yuan qi wall around his body. He went into a defensive stance. Bang! As the heat wave surged, sparks flew everywhere. Zongliang retreated more than 100 steps. Let's see how many palm strikes you can block, Xiezuan shouted, and a huge flaming palm pressed down like a mountain. Palm strike after palm strike pressed down on Xiao Chun. Zongliang's complexion paled. After withstanding 5 moves, blood leaked out of the corner of his mouth. Clearly, he was significantly injured. Lose for me, Xiezuan attacked with both palms. Instantly, the 2 huge flaming palms layered over each other, doubling their might. Zongliang could not block them. Zongliang's protective essence shattered, and he vomited a large mouthful of blood before falling to the ground. The victor is decided. The Group 7 referee said sullenly, Xiezuan wins this match. He gains 2 points. The first elder, Jiang Qi, said gravely, he severely injured Xiao Chun in 5 moves. Xiao Chun has to be careful when he meets him. This person seems to be a disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion. He seems to have gotten into the top 50 in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Xiao Chun did not refute this. He only smiled faintly and continued watching the next match. In the group competition, everyone had to fight 20 matches. The first round was based on the order of their numbers. Xiao Chen's ranking was rather low, so he appeared later. However, the following matches in Group 6 were not of high quality. Xiao Chun could not help but turn his gaze to the other dueling rings. Casually looking around, Xiao Chun discovered a familiar person. he could not help but fix his gaze on her. In the dueling Ring 9, Duamyking was currently fighting an intense battle with her opponent. Duamyking was only a medial grade martial king. However, her opponent was a superior grade martial king, one grade higher than her. However, Duamyking held the absolute advantage in the dueling ring. Her black hair had turned white, and her eyes were cold and emotionless. She held a slender sword in her hand. With every move, Duamyking suppressed her opponent. She was like a machine. Duamyking did not show any emotion at all. Her opponent was definitely not resigned to being suppressed by someone with a lower cultivation. She tried to turn the situation around several times. However, Duamyking calmly found her openings and countered them with all sorts of killing moves. In the end, she lost helplessly, becoming the first person in her group to be defeated by someone of a higher cultivation realm. It turns out that Duamyking has grown so much. Shifting his gaze to the left, Xiao Qin saw another familiar person, the Heavenly Sword Gate's Ding Fengqiu. After not seeing Xiao Qian for more than a year, Ding Fengqiu's improvement was very startling. He used only 3 moves to defeat a superior grade martial king. Now, Ding Fengqiu seemed to be even stronger than Xie Ziwen. After that, Xiao Qian watched a few more matches. The weakest of the participants in the arena battles was a medial grade martial king. Most of them were superior grade martial kings. There are also many half-step martial monarchs. There are less than 10 great perfection half-step martial monarchs. As for peak consummation half-step martial monarchs, Xiao Qian did not see a single one. Look, the Nangong noble clan's Nangong Ziyue is going up. She got into the top 8 in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Xiao Qian looked over and saw a girl in purple standing on the arena of Group 19. She looked very elegant, and her aura was very otherworldly. Her opponent was a stout man holding a huge sword. Based on his aura, he was not a weakling. Gong Haoyu, please give me some pointers. The stout man was very cautious. He knew about the Nangong noble clan's reputation. After the fight started, he immediately took a few steps back. Boom! However, before the stout man could stand firm, Nangongzi sent him sprawling with a palm strike. He did not even see how she attacked. How powerful! She actually used only one palm strike to defeat her opponent. That Gong Haoyu is not weak either. He was also in the top 50 in the previous 5-nation youth competition. However, it feels like they are on completely different levels. The Nangong noble clan's people truly live up to their reputation. I wonder if she can get into the top 5 this time. Everyone had guessed that Nangong Ziyue would win. However, they had not expected her to win so easily. Indeed, the geniuses in the top 10 were not people that ordinary geniuses could compare to. Xiao Qian saw it clearly, but did not care too much. While Nangong Ziyue was very strong, she was not a match for him. Xiao Qian's true opponents were Sima Lingxian and Xianyuan Zhantian. If he wanted to add more, the mysterious Chu Chaoyun could be counted in as well. Next match, contestant number 19, Xiao Chen, versus contestant number 20, Huang Chang. It was finally Xiao Chen's turn to fight in Group 17. Xiao Chen withdrew his aura from the arena, preventing others from knowing how strong he was. He performed a cup fist salute, and the match began. Hee, thank you for giving me 2 points. Xiao Chen's opponent, Huang Chang, was a swordsman. He was also a half-step martial monarch. He pointed his sword at Xiao Chen, not caring about him at all. Huang Chang has not even comprehended sword intent, yet he dares to boast like this. Xiao Chen was speechless. Xiao Chen stepped forward and his figure flickered. He circulated his vital qi quickly and his bones crackled. In that instant, Xiao Chen felt a boundless vital qi spread throughout his body. He shouted, "Breaking armor, seizing the heart." Xiao Chen clenched his right fist and formed a sharp azure shockwave. He easily tore apart his opponent's continuous stream of sword attacks. Seizing the heart claw, Xiao Chen's 5 fingers turned into a claw. The transition between a fist and a claw was very smooth, not unnatural at all. Before Xiao Chen's opponent's horrified gaze, Xiao Chen's 5 fingers tore through his protective essence and stabbed into his chest. Xiao Chen did not manage to grab the heart. He pulled his hand back and slapped Xiao Chen's chest with the back of his hand. A huge force slammed Xiao Chun into the barrier of the arena. With one punch and one claw, Xiao Chen easily defeated his opponent. The fist was the breaking armor fist, specialized in breaking defenses. The claw was the seizing the heart claw. It was as hard as frost iron and as hard as steel. One claw could break the heart. The referee of Group 6 was secretly astonished. The battle in the arena had ended abnormally fast. Others could not determine the cultivations of the two. However, the referee could clearly tell that they were both small perfection, half-step martial monarchs. There was not much of a difference between them. Originally, the referee thought that Xiezuan would be the champion of Group 6. However, it looked like there was an additional variable. This Xiao Chun was definitely not weaker than Xiezuan. Number 19, Xiao Chun wins. You have 2 points. After the referee announced the results, he gave Xiao Chun a deep look. This youth might be even stronger than he thought. In a spectator stand on the east side of the spectator stands, 10 youths leisurely watched the battles on the 20 arenas. These 10 people were the seeded participants of this 5-nation youth competition. They were qualified to skip the first round of elimination. The first seeded participant, Sima Lingxian, could skip 2 rounds of elimination and directly enter the ranking battles. The only female among the seeded participants was Yu Chenxi. She was very eye-catching among the 10. In the past, the 8 noble clans had 8 seeded participants. The remaining 2 spots were reserved for the 10 great sects. However, in this 5-nation youth competition, there were 3 spots for the 10 great sects. The Supreme East Sects Gong Yangyu, the Drifting Snow Sword Sects Lu Xiaoyan, and the Haoyan Sects Yu Chenxi. When Yu Chenxi saw Xiao Chun defeat his opponent in 2 moves, a bright light flashed in her eyes. She revealed a brilliant smile on her pretty face. Xiao Chun, you did not disappoint me. This time, you should be able to make me use my full power. Chapter 570. The first round of the competition continued. On the first day, every participant had to fight 20 matches. Aside from strength, such high-intensity matches were a test of the participant's ability to withstand pressure. After Yun Kursin finished a match, she walked back and looked at Xiao Chun. She smiled and said, Xiao Chun, how many matches have you fought? How are the results? Before Xiao Chun could reply, Lu Suifeng interrupted, He has won all 5 matches. Furthermore, he did not even draw his saber, just like senior sister Yun. Yun Kursin smiled and said, Mine was purely luck. Furthermore, it was not an easy victory. However, there are not many experts in our group. As long as I do not lose 5 matches, I will be able to qualify. In the first round of elimination, the seeded participants did not appear. Hence, many of the groups did not have any peak experts. This was the case for Xiao Chen's Group 6 and Yun Kursin's Group 3. However, there were also some death groups. There were many veteran experts like Bai Zhan in those groups. There were also heaven-defying people like Xianyuan Zhantian and Nangong Ziyue. Being placed in such a group was a tragedy for ordinary participants. It was unfortunate that Murong Chong was placed in such a group. Lu Suifeng said softly, Murong Chong is back. He lost another match. Now, he has lost 2 matches. After Murong Chong returned, he saw Xiao Chun and Yun Kursin. He could not help but smile bitterly. I really want to switch groups with you two. The experts in my group are too monstrous. Seeing Murong Chong being so casual, Xiao Chun knew that he had let go of his worries. He said, Your strength is definitely not weak. In the eyes of others, you are very difficult to deal with. As long as you perform as you normally do, you will definitely be able to clear the first round. Murong Chong said sullenly, I understand. Let's work hard together and do our best to enter the ranking matches. Yin Kursin nodded and said, Definitely. Mu Chun and the others also smiled and said, I wish you all success. Bring glory to our Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's first elder, Jiang Qi, saw this scene, he revealed a joyful smile and nodded slightly. Next battle, Kim Taeho versus Ling Feng. On the 15th group's arena, the old judge said in a low voice, That can't be. This fatso is also participating in the Five-Nation Youth Competition. With his strength, he dares to come without any secret treasures? Lu Suifeng laughed loudly and said, "This fellow, to think that he is not embarrassed to go on stage dressed like that." Xiao Chen's eyes were filled with suspicion as he looked over with interest. He was very interested in how strong Fatso was. "I'm Evil Moon Pavilion's Ling Feng. Please enlighten me." Ling Feng cupped his hands and bowed. Kim Tae-ho was dressed in jewelry and held a golden folding fan in his right hand. He smiled and said, "The Evil Moon Pavilion is a super large sect. Little brother, how about letting this fat lord make a move or two first? You're extraordinarily handsome and have a mighty aura. You're also a popular contender for the top 10. Furthermore, you're from a super large sect. You can just let this fat lord have a few moves, right?" The disciples of a large sect were all prideful. When Ling Feng heard the other party's flattery, he felt somewhat smug. However, Ling Feng maintained a serious expression. He smiled gently and said, "That's fine. I don't mind letting you make a move or two. Make your move." It was just 2 moves. It would be over very quickly. Ling Feng still had that much confidence. Kim Tae-ho chuckled and gave Ling Feng a thumbs up. He said, "You are bold. A large sect is indeed a large sect. No wonder you dare to say that you will fight for the top 10. This fat lord is coming." Bang, bang, bang. Fatso's waist was fat and his legs were thick. Even if he did not weigh 200 tons, he weighed at least 178 tons. As he ran, his fat jiggled. The dueling ring did not seem to be able to withstand his weight. Ling Feng found this very comical. He found it funny in his heart. How did such a person clear the first stage? Amidst the comical footsteps, Kim Tae-ho arrived 20 meters before Ling Feng. Like he said, Ling Feng did not show any signs of making a move, allowing Fatso to approach. When Ling Feng was 10 meters away, Kim Tae-ho's speed suddenly increased by 5 or 6 times. He left a fat afterimage in the air, dazzling everyone. Kim Tae-ho put away his folding fan and flipped his right palm. A golden coffin lid appeared in his hands from his spatial ring. Hee, eat this fat lord's coffin lid. Ling Feng felt a sense of danger for some reason. Just as he was about to draw his weapon, the world around him suddenly started spinning. The laws of heaven and earth actually changed. Pa! There was a heavy sound as the coffin lid, which was unknown how heavy, smashed into the Evil Moon Pavilion elite disciple's body. It was unknown how much force Kim Tae-ho used, but after this heavy strike, Ling Feng immediately fell to the ground, unable to get up again. 1 second ago, the crowd was still staring at Kim Tae-ho's comical movement technique. 1 second later, the situation in the dueling ring reversed. Kim Tae-ho put the coffin lid back into his spatial ring. Then he opened his glittering folding fan with a shio sound. When he started fanning himself, Kim Tae-ho shook his head and sighed. "You are just trash. To think that you dare to say that you will fight for the top 10. The youths these days are getting more and more arrogant. They do not know how to be humble at all." The Evil Moon Pavilion's elders nearly vomited blood when they saw Xiao Chen's serious expression. Those words were clearly said by Fatso. However, when it came out his mouth, it became the Evil Moon Pavilion disciple being arrogant and ignorant, so he taught him a lesson. Disciples of the Evil Moon Pavilion, if you meet this person again, don't say anything. Just cripple him or beat him to death. The Evil Moon Pavilion's intersect first elder said angrily. Kim Tae-ho wins. 2 points. The referee of Group 15 was somewhat speechless, but he still announced the results. Kim Tae-ho put away his folding fan and chuckled. Then he turned his head and waved to the crowd. "Thank you, everyone, for your support. This fat lord will continue fighting. I am the young master of the Golden Rock Merchant Association. If you want to do business in the future, you can come and look for me. I will give you a 20% discount." Before leaving, Kim Tae-ho did not forget to advertise his merchant association. It was as though everything was a matter of course. This fatso's skin is extraordinarily thick. Too shameless. The Evil Moon Pavilion's people are probably crying. The cultivators and the spectator stands all cursed and laughed. They felt that the evil Moon Pavilion's people did not deserve this. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, he could not help but laugh hoarsely. However, this was indeed Fatso's true colors. If he was not shameless, he would not be Kim Tae-ho. After the matches of Group 6 ended, the referee immediately said, "Next match, Xiao Chun versus Xiezuan." Baijian looked at the eager Xiezuan and said, "Remember what I said. Just move around and test his strength. After that, just take the initiative to admit defeat." Xiezuan was extremely unconvinced. He gave a casual reply and eagerly flew towards the arena. Xiezuan was a genius disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion, second only to Baijian. He was ranked 47th in a previous five-nation youth competition. He was considered an expert in Group 6. As for Xiao Chun, he was the rising star of Group 6. He had fought 5 matches in a row and won them all. Furthermore, they were all overwhelming victories. In the eyes of the spectators, the match between the two was a battle between the strong. It attracted the attention of many people. In the wind cloud platform, Xiezuan looked at Xiao Chun with a sullen expression. He said in a cold voice, "Xiao Chun, remember what I said back then? Sooner or later, I will trample on you in front of everyone." Xiao Chun took out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring and smiled. "I'm afraid I will have to disappoint you." If Xiao Chun continued to use his fists and feet to deal with Xiezuan, he would waste a lot of time. So, he intended to end this match quickly. Hence, he no longer had any thoughts of hiding his strength. There is no point in saying so much. Make your move. You should feel honored that you have successfully forced me to take out the lunar shadow saber. Several cultivators in the spectator stands were astonished. In the earlier matches, Xiao Chun had only used his fists and feet to deal with his physical body. The strong combat prowess that Xiao Chun displayed was already shocking enough. They did not expect that his fists and feet were only supplementary attacks. His true identity as a bladesman was his true identity. This Xiao Chun really hid his strength very deeply. 2 points are deducted for each defeat in the arena. He is rather courageous. It looks like there will be a newcomer in Group 6 as well. Haha, let's wait until he defeats Xiezuan first. If he loses, he will not be that strong. The cultivators paying attention to Group 6 discussed in soft voices. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chun had hidden his strength. This made the crowd feel even more anticipation for this match. Seeing that Xiao Chun was looking down on him, Xiezuan was so angry that he laughed instead. He said, good. Let's see if you dare to continue being arrogant later." 1,000 flaming palms. Xiezuan shouted ferociously. All the fire-attributed spiritual energy in the vast wind cloud platform instantly surged. Sparks leaped around the arena. Xiezuan pushed his right palm forward, and the sparks instantly gathered, forming a huge palm with clear lines. It was like a mountain, carrying a boundless might as it pressed down on Xiao Chun. With this move, no one had been able to receive more than 10 moves from Xiezuan. This showed how strong this move was. Kasie. Xiao Chun drew the lunar shadow saber, and a purple light flickered. The solid flaming palm instantly split in half before turning into countless sparks. Xiao Chun easily broke the 1,000 flaming palms with one saber strike. There was no difficulty at all. Damn it! Xiezuan's expression turned slightly unsightly. He had not expected Xiao Chun to break his move so easily. His figure flickered in the air without any pattern. Instantly, many flaming palms filled the air, pressing down on Xiao Chun from all directions. At a glance, the vast wind cloud platform was filled with flaming palms. The scene looked very majestic. Xiao Chun's expression remained calm as he moved through the flaming palms like he was taking a leisurely stroll. As he brandished his saber, it was like a heavenly steed soaring through the air. He attacked casually. The saber moved with his heart, and the person moved with the saber. Like moving clouds and flowing water, he chopped those terrifying flaming palms into sparks. The Group 6 referee's pupils constricted slightly. He thought to himself, what a wondrous state. This fellow's saber techniques seem to have reached the level of heaven's perception. Xiao Chun said indifferently, Xie, if this is all you are capable of, then don't come out and embarrass yourself. As you wish. Xie expression sank. He had not expected the martial technique that he had worked so hard to comprehend to be insufficient in the eyes of Xiao Chun, forcing him to use his trump card in advance. Rage of 10,000 flames. Roar. Suddenly, the thousands of flames in the arena trembled intensely. It was like angry cultivators had developed emotions. When the trembling sounds rang out, it gave off the feeling of a fire god shouting. Rage, berserk, dissatisfaction, and various other emotions spread out. Xie had actually infused his own emotions into the state of fire.